What's up, everyone? We are back. God bless y'all. We are happy to see another day talking about the goodness, the grace, the mercy of our Lord Jesus Christ. So, luckily, we already have our first guest. Fallon is back. We are excited to speak to him. The topic today is a question for atheists. Why do y'all not believe that God is all good? I think that we've seen a variation of people speak about God's morality. That wouldn't be a God that I follow based on these points. And I think that touching on some of those points can be not only enlightening, but progressive for somebody who may have either misinterpretation or are reading the scriptures in a way that is dictated by their current worldview. So let's get into that. We're gonna check Fallon's mic and see how it's doing. Hi, Fallon. How are you tonight?
Not too bad, not too bad. How are you both doing?
Good. We're
Good.
great.
You got a camera this time.
Got a
Yeah, I
camera.
did. Yeah, I did. Finally got it on.
Great. So, Fallon, we have our back history of you. We know you. We've talked to you many times now. What do you have on the topic? What do you think?
Sure. One real quick thing. I'm gonna post the link in chat. Just as a follow up, we had talked about Isaiah 7 and 8 last time, and
Mhm.
I just put together a bunch of documents. I went and looked at some commentaries, Christian commentaries, scholarly commentaries about those verses. I'm just sharing it with you guys. It's just a Google Doc. It has links. If you ever
Okay.
want to talk about that ahead of time, I think it gives a really good insight as to some very like maybe not the same views you share about that, but is backed by like scholars, even going back as far as 1912. So I wanted to put that out for you. And Miss Carson, I also realized I owe you a response to the New Testament authors' different views of Jesus. So
Mhm.
I'm putting that together next. I just want to do one thing at a time, so I haven't forgotten about that. But
Oh,
yeah, to your question, as far as God not being good, I think there's things that happen in the Bible that I think just don't fit our definitions of just and goodness.
Mhm.
But I understand that if Christians define good as whatever God does is inherently good, there's no argument because that's divine command theory. So I think you have to say, if you're going to say, something that a supernatural godlike entity does, it's going to be subjective by your very nature. Because if you just say you can't argue with God, then there's really no discussion to be had, I think.
I think that the discussion part comes because is God just and is God good? Yes. So therefore, our rebuttal to is everything that God does good would be yes. But I think the
Mm-hmm.
conversation comes from um, the conceptualization of how y'all view good and what it is in the Bible that dictates a like moral standing of what is good and what is not and how y'all perceive it. So now, like, could you give an example of something in the Bible that you find to be not good on God's end?
Sure. I look to the punishment of David. Uh, God is motivates, I believe, David's son Absalom to overthrow David because David was sleeping with Bathsheba. And during the course of that, and I don't have the verses pulled up, so pardon me if I don't have those ready.
No problem. Go ahead.
God dictates that he's like, hey, I'm gonna have David's wives violated by Absalom's men, and they're going to do it, or Absalom does it, at the top of the palace so that the entire nation can see. Because what David did in private, I'm going to have done to your wives in public. And it's kind of God bragging about this. So in this case, David has offended the Lord, but the punishment is the rape of David's wives by soldiers and Absalom himself. Now, to me, that's immoral. That's punishing the wives for the sins of David or God's displeasure of David. But again, in a Christian worldview, God can't do anything wrong. So this kind of punishment of the wives for the sin of David is perfectly fine. There is no saying God's not being fair by having the wives raped. So for me, like I look at that and go, That's not fair. That's not just. That's not how I would want to be treated by a court or by even my enemies. But in this case, I think Christians are sort of locked into going, hey, that's what the God said he was going to do. It's what happened. And that was the punishment, for a king failing to live up to God's expectations.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is most Christian views. It is definitely going to be that whatever God dictates is the proper punishment for whatever sin or violation of His law happens. Then that is ergo what is permitted, especially for us who don't have the full picture and the full knowledge and the all knowing things of that sort. But what I would ask in return is when you talk about, like, of course we can talk about rape and all of those things, but the bigger picture is morality, right? God not being moral in your eyes. And so my question for you is, what standard of morality do you appeal to when you judge this like good or bad in your perspective?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I'm that much different than any other, I mean, and dare I say it, like white, middle class American. I think, I was raised in the sense of fair play. I think they've even done studies of different countries that kind of show the example they did was, let's say there's $100 and you have to divide it between two people. Now, most Americans are like 50-50 is fair, right? Everything else being absent 50-50. But in other cultures, I think Japan was one, they were like, no, 1 and 99, because it was a sign of respect that you take the lower amount and the person get the higher amount. So I think culturally in America, there's a sense of fair play, that the punishment should fit the crime and that the guilty, should be the ones punished, not the innocent. So I'd appeal to American culture, how I was raised. I think when it comes to maybe a more philosophical approach, I lean towards what is unnecessary suffering. If we're going to label something as evil or wrong or immoral, I think I start from a place of unnecessary suffering, because after all, if I want to run and get better at running, I'm going to suffer. My body's going to suffer, but it's for a purpose and it's not unnecessary. It's for some reason. And you may have people suffer such through, we're putting you in jail. You're going to suffer in jail, but the benefit is you're not going to hurt anyone else. Or we could even be more honest and say it's a form of vengeance. You've hurt someone in society. We're going to enact a penalty because you've hurt them. And we want to try to dissuade people. But yeah, unnecessary suffering is probably where I would start to ground a secular, moral view.
Mm-hmm. And that when I think of suffering, because are you a naturalist?
By and large, yes. I'm open to the idea of a supernatural world, but day to day, I'm a naturalist.
Okay. And so I think that's the really like thought-provoking question for me when it comes to y'all's perspectives, because not y'all, I'm sorry, I'm speaking to you, but I mean like the
Of
atheist
course.
perspective. It's more along the lines of you have a gauge of suffering, right? But then I think that y'all put it under the blanket of wrong, right? Suffering is wrong or suffering is bad, right? A negative, And so I guess my question is like, how can we understand if a line is crooked if we don't understand straight? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you know that suffering is not just something that is natural, that happens among us, and it's not deemed as right or wrong?
Oh yeah, it's a great question, and I think we can look to the natural world like it's not fair, it's not even. It's a predatory world. You can have, it's one reason why many animals, including humans to some degree, have so many children, because there's, a high infant mortality outside of, hospitals within the natural world. There are insects that are specifically, evolved or are here that focus on, babies. There's lots of horrific things in the universe, and it's by no means fair. So when I talk about fairness, I'm coming from a place of we are in a position as humans to talk about fairness in a way that the natural world doesn't reflect. I think we would all agree that like sometimes life is unfair and there's no one really you can complain to because there's no promise of life being fair. I think in either our worldviews, whether it's a flawed, a view of the flawed view of the fall of Adam, and it's a broken world and we have a sinful nature, or a naturalist view that there's no such thing as an inherent fairness to anything. It's just the world is the way it is. So when I talk about it, I'm saying that because humans, through language and culture, we have a chance to talk about fairness and how we treat each other. We have a way to think about that. We can go, hey, this is, in a perfectly fair world, we can imagine that we're like, oh, I am not fired for no reason. I would only get fired for cause. In the real world, if there were no laws, my boss could fire me for any reason whatsoever. So for me, a lot about fairness is about imagining different worlds. Can we imagine a world where I am treated equally or respectfully? Can I imagine a world where someone doesn't treat me that way? And which do I think is more fair? Does that answer your question? If not, I apologize.
No, I have a. I have a. I wanted to see, Malik. Do you have a? You want to step in? Do you have any perspective about what he just said? Are you?
No, I just wanted to address the David thing that he said earlier.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
As far as the David thing that was going on, those were humans that committed these wrongdoings, these acts. What God, when the God of Israel, so when you're talking about God of the Bible, right? David has to answer to him. So like for I'll use Noah for just to get an example of what I'm mentioning. Noah, right? He was just protected from the wrath of God because God saw him as righteous, right? So when the flood came, God protected Noah and everyone on that ark from the wrath, right? But what happened to David was because David was supposed to be protected, and but he defied God, he defied Yahweh. Yahweh took his hand off of him, therefore claiming him, you are going to suffer the consequences, and you'll see what happens to you when I take my hand up off of you. So it wasn't necessarily that God was like, I'm going to have your woman, this happen to your woman, and that happened to your woman. I'm going to do this to you. I'm going to do that to you. It wasn't that. It was God took his blessing off of David and told him, you're going to see the consequences of what happens when I'm not protecting you. And
Uh,
these humans who despise you because you're a king, there's people who want to come, who want to, come take over your kingdom, who want to kill you, who want to kill your son, who want to kill your wives. You're going to now suffer the consequences and see what that actually feels like when me, the true God, is not protecting you from it. That's what
sure.
God is saying.
Can I, would you mind if I respond to that real quick? Can you pull up 2 Samuel 12 and I'll read it here. This is the New Revised Standard Edition. And so in 2 Samuel 12, let's see here. So it says, now therefore, the sword shall never depart from your house, for you have despised me and taken up the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your wife. So this is God talking to David, or the prophet talking to David. It says, thus saith the Lord, I will raise up trouble against you from within your own house, and I will take your wives before your eyes and give them to your neighbor, and he shall lie with your wives in broad daylight. For you did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel and in broad daylight. Now, the I in this is the Lord. Thus saith the Lord, I will raise up trouble. I will take your wives. I have to assume that you would agree with this. If the Lord is saying, I am doing something, the responsibility, the act of that has to be with the Lord. Even if it's not done through his servants, we would surely say that if the Lord says, I am doing something, we have to give credit and responsibility to the Lord for doing it. So that's what I meant when I said that it's coming from the Lord.
No, yeah, the him taking his blessing off of him, that's what I'm saying. So whenever you look at the God of the Bible, he speaks this way very often, right? So like for example, when he with in Exodus, when he talks about Pharaoh, right? And he say, I'm going to harden your heart, right? And it
Mm-hmm.
says the Lord is going to keep hardening, it keeps hardening Pharaoh's heart. With it, because it's taking out of context from atheists, or taken out of context from skeptical scholars or anything like that. They're not actually understanding what he's actually saying, because they're not looking at the character of how God is actually revealing himself throughout the Bible. They're looking at it from a human perspective. God is not a human, right? So when he's talking this way, what he's stating is, I'm going to allow whatever happens to you happen to you, because I'm no longer going to cover you. So for example, you defied women before me, and I seen you do it in secret. You thought that you were getting away with it, and I seen you do it. Therefore, the things that you reaped, you will sow. So when this happens to your women, don't look don't look crazy because you did this. Now I'm taking the covering of the blessing off of you, because David did things in secret that would be the exact same thing, but flipped. So
I
David is just reaping the consequences of his own actions.
I certainly understand why you would think that. I just, for again, in a plain reading, I don't presuppose univocality. I don't feel like I have to defend God from doing these things. But when the verses say the Lord is saying something and he's going to do something, that's not to me, hey, I'm taking away protection and the consequences of your actions will happen, because here the Lord is saying specifically, I'm going to raise up trouble. So he's not just saying trouble is raised because my protection is gone. He's saying I am doing something. And it actually happens. We read later. So he's taking responsibility for the actions. He says, I will take your wives before your eyes. That's God doing it. And I'm going to give them to your neighbor. That's God giving them to the neighbor. And they're going to lie with your wives in broad daylight. For you did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all of Israel.
So you heard what you just said after that. You just stated he did the exact same thing. So David is suffering the consequences of his
oh,
actions.
yeah,
He
yeah.
did he did this. He did the same exact thing that's being happening to him.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Like David offended the Lord. I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying that I can't say that when the Bible says the Lord does something, that it's a removal of protections. If he says, I'm going to take your wives, I'm going to raise up trouble. These are things that are not just a natural repercussion. It's the
Or
Lord claiming authority and action in the universe. And I can't, in good consciousness, say it doesn't mean what God says.
So do you think God is God at this point? This is the Old Testament. So is he a physical being?
That seems to be what the authors think by and large. It describes wrestling with Jacob, who's then later called Israel. It talks of Moses speaking with God and walking with God.
I'm talking
So I
about
think
in
the
Second Samuel. Where's God? Because we're talking about David, right?
oh, I have no idea if Samuel mentions the physicality of God in this. I assume he's going to follow the Old Testament authors that came before him in the sense of God being, having a
Invisible.
body of some kind.
No. What I'm asking is where does it show us that God came down and he took his wives and then handed them over? Because if he's in the physical and he comes down, why doesn't Samuel record God himself doing these
Oh,
actions?
no, I'm not saying that God was there with the women. That's not my argument, because I think that
Or
would be something.
you said he took them. That's what
Yeah,
that's
yeah. So God is
and I'm
bragging,
saying
and
this is metaphoric. This is he's not
oh,
actually doing it himself.
so
I add in something
oh, sure,
really
of course.
um I wanted to see, have you thought about it like this following? So God is saying, like what you're saying, he's saying, like, I'm going to do this, and that. But the reality is, all the human beings on earth have free will, right? So we have to remember the context of what we're reading. So I hope I don't pronounce his name wrong, but the man who is David's son, Absalom,
Absalom,
right?
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's already vengeful and angry with his father. So he already has intention to do something wicked, right? And so I think what Malik is saying is this is less about God manipulating like a video game to say you're going to do this and you're going to do that, but more along the lines of God's allowance of the wickedness that's already pointed and targeted towards David. When he says that he's lifting his like taking away his blessing or his protection or the things that has carried him this long based on David's wicked behavior, we do see a matter of consequence, right? We do understand a matter of consequence, and yet still we have to also put in the nuance of free will and understand that these people that carried out the action towards David's wife, it was his wife, right? That was right? It was his wife. David,
He had several wives. So
Yeah.
he yeah.
wives, they already had this intention. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, from the character of God and the way that he describes us in our creation, he talks about our free will to the nth degree. And so it means that these men wouldn't have raped these women if they didn't have the intention to do so already. This was
Oh,
their
I yeah.
intention.
So
Mhm.
I think my view of this is that the author of this, because again, I don't approach this from like God actually did this. For me, it's
Right.
like, what is the author trying to say? And the more I've learned about this is, and just to put some context, we know, I think, very little about David as an actual king. I think there's one reference to him, the house of David, but we don't, for example, this scene, I don't think there's any historical evidence we know this happened or not, and I could be wrong. But so for me, I viewed this as, I think, as one scholar put it, as religious fan fiction. And what I mean is that an author is trying to explain a story. David, cheated with Bathsheba, and God punished him, and there was a political uprising. So for me, the author in this case, he wants God to be like, hey, I'm going to raise trouble, because he wants to justify Absalom overthrowing David. That's part of what the story is about. So here he just has God bragging. He has no problem with the view of God being like, this punishment on your wives is a divine punishment. Yes, men may have carried it out, but God clearly says, I will raise up trouble. If God's raising up trouble, that's an active thing. Just like you and me, like we might all agree that, for example, let's say, everyone has a imperfect nature, sinful or natural. But if I tell my friend, I'm going to raise trouble up against you, that's going far beyond a natural consequence. I'm actively creating additional trouble for you. I didn't have to, right? Your consequences could have been something else. So I think we have to look at the text and just say, listen, this person has God going above and beyond just pulling up protection or not doing anything. He's saying, I'm taking your wives. I'm raising up trouble. They want God to be in charge of Absalom's punishment, or of David's punishment. And what is that punishment? David is run out of his, of the kingdom, and his wives are raped and punished for his crimes. They're just putting God in there as the ultimate authority. So, that's my view. And I don't have a problem with this. I don't think this actually happened. I think it's a story trying to show exactly what you said, which is if you mess around with God, there's going to be horrific repercussions. And the stronger your position, the more innocent people will get hurt. And I think we see that also in other stories we could talk about later, where like 70,000 Israelites died because David took a census. We can talk about that story. But again,
I think you're absolutely right in the context of you can't play with God. And I think that the reality of all of this is that sometimes when we describe God as good, it often kind of correlates to the human mind as nice, or as, some type of weak or like doormat type of vessel that's here to serve us, or that God is going to do X, Y, and Z because he loves us. And the reality is that he does love us. But I think that when he says, fear me, I am your Lord, your God, I think that we have to take that into consideration in the gravity in which he meant it. Go ahead, Malik. I know you was going to say something. Mm-hmm. Oh, you weren't? Okay. So
I agree with that. I also want to say, like, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Please finish.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I also want to say, like, from my approach, I don't need the Bible to be univocal. I don't need all the authors to agree on God's character. We've talked a bit how, like, does God change his mind? Some authors seems he might change his mind. Some authors say he doesn't change his mind, like a mortal. He's not like a man, right? So I try not to hold authors accountable for like what other authors say, unless it makes sense that they would be referencing earlier stories. So, I think there's many views of God in the Old Testament and New Testament, and this is just one author's take on it. And I think we have to be, aware of that potentially, that it doesn't reflect all of the author's views.
Yeah, kind of circling back to the point when you said we were talking about God being good, and then I asked you about the goodness that you appeal to, and you kind of spoke about imagining a world, right? And so I found that to be like interesting to me, because a lot of times Christians are described as like fantastical and like, oh, fairy tales and these things. But like when I hear that perspective of imagining a world, it kind of seems like you feel as though you have the options to pick what kind of world you exist in. And then by that choice that you make, and correct me if I'm wrong, by that choice you make, you can dictate or have a like kind of like a hierarchy or a godlike position in that world to be able to say, I believe that this is good and I believe that this is bad.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think so much of it comes from culture, and I think studies would back this up that where you're born often influences like your religion. I think, and I say this, I don't have the study in front of me, but they were like, if you're born in Near East in an Islamic culture, you're likely to be Islamic. If you're born here in the States, you're likely to be a Christian. Those kind of things, right? So I think I just say like culture influences so much of this, and also language does too. Like, my wife is left-handed. How many
Mhm.
times have we heard, "Don't take the left-hand path. You should let the right
Always
hand,
makes our
right hand
daughter
of the
miss
Father."
the
Like, yeah, right. And so a lot of that influences, I think, how we think. Because for me, we've talked about this before, like when it comes to science and evolution. But I think, because we can think, because we have language, language influences so much of how we think about things unconsciously
Mhm.
that I have to allow for that when it comes to things like right or wrong. But you're right. I mean, someone could imagine a world where, hey, like, I am the most important person. Nothing I do is ever wrong. Therefore, everything I do is right. Taking sort of like a godlike position.
Mhm.
Someone could do
Yeah,
that.
I
I
want
don't.
to
Yeah,
interject really quickly. When you talk about
please.
the language, that's been something that me and Malik have discussed a lot of times on this platform. And I know, again, when I say atheist, I know you don't speak for all, right? I'm
Of
just
course.
using
Thank
it
you.
as a statement. But what I'm saying to you is we've heard the atheist perspective of like, okay, this language, like this doesn't actually mean this in my worldview, or this is not how I appeal to this in my worldview, even though it kind of like narrates off from the definition, right? And so this kind of puts us in a position where we've started to understand that the worldview of atheism is very godlike, is very selfish. In my opinion, it comes from a
Mm,
place of I make decisions, what I believe and how I view the world, and what it is that I think matters in to the highest capacity. And then when I'm challenged on that, or when I see different perspectives, then I'm going to kind of minimize or stomp on your perspectives. But if you have an issue with what I think, then I have an issue overall. You know what I'm saying? So I think that it's more like y'all can give a lot of information and a lot of scholarly like things to back your perspectives. But then when we are able to step into our world where we understand that Jesus Christ is God, it's like the expansion past that, being able to say, okay, let's examine this. Let's actually have a true examination of what it is in your perspectives. I think that that's a weak area for most atheists.
Oh, sure. I would agree with that. Like, I think from a, and not just Christian, but other theistic positions, there is
Mhm.
a sense of like, hey, there's right or wrong. It's in this book. And it tells us that there is a lawgiver, and those, laws are absolute. And whether you believe they're, you know, some people argue like, if God gives a law that's good, is it good because God said it, or is it just good because it's good inherently? Why do we need God to know about it? And I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, because I want to speak to your point, which is like, yes, in an atheistic worldview, all morality is subjective,
Mhm.
right? And so
Oh,
you
and
can
I mean,
ask
for
me,
you to say that, I think that we should pop a firework for a second. I
no,
mean, I'm just saying, like, I'm sorry, I want you to finish your point, but I'm just saying,
no.
we have these conversations. It's like, no, it's like objective, and it kind of confuses me because I'm trying to consider where is the standard that we are judging this right, because there's a dichotomy between right and wrong, right? But if we're going to talk about a moral view, then there's going to be an absolute standard that we're gauging that by. And so
I
if the standard is based on what you feel, what you think, and what you believe, that kind of makes you the center of that standard. Am I wrong?
Oh, no, sure. And I would put it back like this a little bit, is that there may be some philosophers who say like, hey, just like there's a quantum field, or gravity, there's a morality field. There's something that grounds morality that has nothing to do with human beings. We just interact with it. I've never studied that. I just want to raise it because I never heard that talked about, right?
Mhm.
But to your point, no, it's like it has to be subjective for an atheist because we don't appeal. Now, there might be some people, and I am philosophically ignorant, of saying that no, there are moral objective principles. They exist out there. We just discover them. I haven't read into that. But I don't have a
Mhm.
problem with morality being subjective. What I would push back on a little bit though is, in your experience, have you ever encountered a reading of the Bible from other Christians who you believe in good faith are Christians, but where you fundamentally disagreed with. Like if
Their
someone
inter-
says, "What's that?"
their interpretations.
Yeah, their interpretations where it was 180 to what you thought was clear to you in your understanding of God or Jesus or the Bible. Have you ever encountered that?
I think that I've encountered because the Bible is split in two different categories: prescriptive and descriptive. Now, I haven't had many encounters where anything that is prescriptive, thus says the Lord. I think that's very cut and dry for us as a community, and I think that we have a lot of unity in those perspectives. But what I do think that is the descriptive text. Something, for instance, I'll give you a example. Like
Mm-hmm.
if um, if God tells Abraham to go and sacrifice his son for a understanding of his faith, but also a call for the position that God is going to put him in, this grand position and things of that sort, just for a paraphrasing. And then it's like, oh, well, should I go and try to see if I should sacrifice my child just because blank, blank, blank? Like if that was the perspective, then I think, yeah, we have a lot of misinterpretations in the descriptive text. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, and that's a brilliant thing because one thing as an atheist is while I don't have an objective moral set, everything's open for
I'm
discussion.
sorry. Before you
Please.
respond, really, like, what do you think? Do you think that you've had encounters with Christians who have misinterpreted the Bible?
I mean, yeah, I think you said it pretty much perfectly. There's not really um, a diversion between anything that's prescriptive. The issues always come in when it's descriptive because we see people even today say there's nothing wrong with having multiple wives, right? But then we see Jesus saying
Yeah.
God made male and female and made them one. He didn't say male and females. He didn't say male and a male. He didn't say male and kind of a male, kind of a female. He said he made male and female and made them one flesh. And I think there's a lot of confusion between that because it's how they want to interpret it. So I think the issue amongst Christians is, are you actually following what the word is saying, or are you following what you want to follow? That's the issue.
Mm.
Because
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I think the issue that I have with atheism versus Christianity, right, is Christianity. No matter what, we can always come back to the root, which the root is: are me and you both following Christ? Yes. Let's start here and then go up. But with atheism, I always find it's like the abyss. It's a bottomless pit. You're just gonna fall in it, and y'all both are gonna fall in it because there's nowhere to really. It really depends on who you're talking to. So it's hard to figure out where to move because I could talk to one person like what you just said. You say, "Hey, it is subjective," but then I could talk to someone tomorrow and they'll say, "No, I believe in some things are objective and some things are not." Or then you'll talk to another person who says, "What is morals?" And then we'll talk to another person who says, well, morality is only what you make it. Make the best of your life. It's so many different foundations of this atheist, which is why I think it's false and why it's chaotic. Because when you are in that confusion, it can lead to so many different types of things. One person over here will live a righteous life, right? I know atheists who live a good life, like a decent life, right? A decent person. But then I know other atheists that'll take that and say, well, because I don't really believe in anything, nothing really matters. I'm gonna just get drunk, I'm gonna get high, and if I die getting high, oh well, you know. And so it causes chaos because it's so much in between. Whereas Christ is giving us a guideline and say, don't cross these boundaries. And if you cross these boundaries, you're gonna pay for it. But I find that people don't want to have that you're gonna pay for it part. They're like, he's not moral because I have to pay for it. Well, if Ted Bundy, for example, right? If Ted Bundy got executed the way that he executed people, would you say that the law system was immoral for doing executing him the way he executed his people?
Personally, yes. I don't. I think we should try to keep the law from being vengeful. But I don't like. I'm not arguing like we shouldn't execute him. That's not my point. If you just said like, should we torture him? I'm not a big fan of torturing people by the state just because there's always that small chance you're wrong. And I don't like the idea of the state getting creative about torturing people, its citizens. That puts me
But
off.
we're not talking about a chance if they're wrong. We're talking about, we know Ted Bundy, what he did, right? We know he did these things. We have evidence. We can convict this person.
Sure.
We can convict him. So
Sure.
we're going to convict him, and he's going to be executed. Is that wrong?
Oh no, I mean, I don't like the state executing people. In a hypothetical situation where we're 100% certain, sure, we could execute him. We could say like he would be a danger to other people. It might be in the best interest of the state to execute him. I just want to be clear, I'm not for torture, and I don't like the state executing people because in the future they could be wrong, as opposed to a known absolute that's not. But
that point I was
yeah,
getting at with that. Sorry, I'll say this really quickly because I know
sure.
you're going to say something. That's the point I'm getting at, is with God, he knows if God is truly God and he's all knowing, he knows 100%. So when he does his judgment and he judges a town, he judges a country, he judges a people, he judges a group, he knows for sure. So he's not going to miss and say, oh, what if I was wrong about that? He already knows. So when he does something, right, he's not immoral because he knows for sure.
Oh yeah, no, I think you've stated the divine command theory perfectly. I think that's, and I understand why it's comforting to Christians in some way, because who wouldn't want an all-knowing, all-powerful judge who's always right, and thus no matter what they do, it's always good. That's a comforting thought, right? And I'm not. Oh,
Found that part. I just wanted to make sure that just when you said always good, or there, did you mean that the Christians are always good? Is that what
oh
you
no,
mean?
that God was always good, like an all good
Okay.
Father.
And that
But
we can do whatever we want and it'll always be good? Is that what you were
oh
saying?
no.
Okay.
I just meant to say that like it's comforting to think that there's a judge out there which is never wrong. If God does something, he's always right. That's very comforting. I think that's an idea that we would find comforting. Because after all, if we're going to be judged for our sins or our crimes, having a perfect judge with all knowledge would be nice to have, right? If you're innocent, you're innocent. If you're guilty, you're guilty.
I think the question, Alan, for you for that perspective is, how comfortable would you be at the gaze of perfectness?
That's one of those questions. It's like, I don't know how to answer that. I mean, what am I going to say? I would be like, oh, I'll be fine in front of God Almighty. I'm not going to be nervous.
What I'm saying,
you know what I mean?
You said it's comforting, and I think that a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of have that perspective of Christians, that it's just like this pacifier for us, that this all good, all knowing God will always make sure everything is good. And I think that is a huge aspect of God for us. And to clarify, it is comforting, but also I think that sometimes when people say that God is all good, and people with different worldviews reject that, it's more along the lines of he would never punish, or he would never
Oh yeah.
be angry, or he would never have wrath. And so when we see the wrath of God, it's like, well, he's not good. Well, no, he is good. Like a great parent is going to have repercussions for actions that they've already warned their children to stay away from. And so I think that the misinterpretation sometimes of our belief system is that it's like, oh, we're just babies and it's all just so great,
Yeah.
versus that we are trying every day, because we're sinful and innately in our hearts, we desire sinful things. Every day we're trying to walk this rope that God has put before us, because this life is purposeful and there is something after it. And so the prestige and the identity that you obtain while you are on this earth, breathing and walking, while you're not all knowing, while you're not in his presence, while you don't have all the proof, I think that speaks volumes as to the Christian's walk through this life.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. There's some, God, what was it called? I heard a term for this, was like woo-woo Christian, where, God is always happiness and joy, and he's never mad, he's never sad. All the laws are bendable because he loves us. I fully understand I think I fully understand your point. And one thing I'll circle back on is, I think, and maybe that's why there's such a difficulty for Christians and atheists to understand each other, is that for me, atheism only answers one question: do you believe a God exists? And my answer is no. It doesn't tell me anything about morality, how I should live my life, who I should care for, what I should do with my time while here on earth. Is there an afterlife? I mean, you could have someone who's like, I don't believe in a God, but I do believe my soul goes someplace. Technically, they'd be an atheist. They don't believe in a God, but they believe in reincarnation. You can be an atheist and believe in spiritual things, right? I'm not one of those. I think it would be nice, but So I think like what I try to do is go, listen, from a Christian worldview, I try to take the best case of your views on, what morality means to come from God, because that's where you're coming from. The best case for me is to go, hey, I don't believe in a God. There is no absolute lawgiver. So we have to start in a place of going, that's not an option. So you can't really hold it against me in my worldview. Now you may disagree, but like, if there is no God and there is no ultimate lawgiver, then I just can't start from that position, and it shouldn't be held against me. Just like for you, I can't say God's evil because he did X given my subjective worldview, because I understand that in yours, God is not held to account of my subjective worldview, right? So try to be fair to your worldview and to mine. But it's such a huge difference, right? Like you said, like you were like, oh no, atheism, it's a void, and I'm like, no man, like I love my family, I love hanging out with kids, I like doing good in this world. Atheism doesn't make that harder. It doesn't. In some ways, it makes it easier.
I don't think he meant avoid in that way. It's not that you don't value your natural life and the things and the abundant things that you've been blessed with in it. It's more along the lines of what you just said. It doesn't answer. It only answers one question, and I think that
Yeah.
describes avoidance. That describes a place of like an unknown that I think most human beings don't feel comfortable in. But I'll ask you a question, Fallon. I want to
Mhm.
ask you a question, because you said you didn't say it in this context, but you mentioned the words could be wrong, and we mentioned 100% just when you were speaking to Malik, right? And this
Mhm.
this wasn't your context, but I wanted to use those as a segue to how skeptical are you of your worldview? Like how yeah, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. I think I was more skeptical when I was younger. Just so you know, I saw some great debates on this. When I say knowledge or knowing something, I don't think 100% knowledge is required to know something. And what I mean by that is like, the old I think therefore I am. It's like I know I exist because I'm thinking right now. Could I be a butterfly? Could I be in the matrix? Could I be a computer program and not know it? Sure, but I'm still feeling something, so I exist in some way. So for me, knowledge doesn't have to be 100% accurate for it to still have value. But when I was younger, I think, like I said, and it's funny, by the way, I'm reading up on Anthony's flu book. And it's funny, we went through similar things where he was talking about parapsychology, because that's something I looked into. I was like, hey, is there a scientific explanation for like psychic phenomena, dreams, visions, all these things? So I would say now I'm pretty certain that those things don't exist in terms of like ghosts, demons, spirits, gods, angels. I'm fairly certain. I would say 99.9%. I'm open to being wrong, but I don't worry about them in my daily life. If that's maybe the best barometer we could talk about is how sure I am. Much like I don't worry like gravity's not going to work tomorrow. I don't worry about myself going to hell or encountering a demon. That's the level of certainty I have. It's not 100%. Maybe gravity stops working tomorrow, but it's not a practical concern for me.
Okay. And that's perfectly fine. I think that question my follow-up for that is, okay, let's just say it's 0.1% of a chance, right?
Sure.
And of course we understand for the logical perspective of gravity or these things, because if gravity stops working, we all fall splat, right? If that happens, then in your worldview there's nothing. We just are not here anymore. But for me, for that 0.1% chance, the reason that it's so fundamental to us for even, I mean, of course, we've committed and put up all our eggs in this basket, but the
Mm-hmm.
reason is because that 0.1% is an eternity, right? So the value of it is not the same as this world we live in today. The value of it is eternal. And so with that being said, say for instance that 1% is correct, do you just say, because you know the gospel at this point, you've had the experiences, you've spoken to the people, you've studied the Bible, as we can see, and so with all of that and you having this knowledge of Jesus Christ and saying, yeah, I know all this, but no, then that leads to an eternity of suffering. But because we both have agreed that there is a zero point 0.1, at least a 0.1% chance that this is true, you're willing to take that risk.
Yeah, I don't I may have said 0.01, and I don't want to be held to that
You
because it was
said
just a number off the cuff. Yeah,
99.9,
but
yeah.
Yeah, and so this is a fascinating topic because it comes into some other things as well. So it's Pascal's wager, right? If there's even a small chance that hell is real, why not just jump in and accept Jesus Christ as your savior, right? Because
Right.
if you're wrong, there's no heaven. You haven't lost anything, right? The argument that I push back on is going, there's always a cost. So, for example, let's say that I was like, yeah, I'm a psychopath. I'm just going to like play the odds. First, I don't think God would appreciate that. I think God would see through my ruse if I wasn't honestly converted. But let's say I do a good faith effort and I manage somehow to convince myself that Christianity is true. And my initial impulse was because there might be a 0.001 chance it's true, right? There's always a cost. And so the example I'll give you is both of you right now, right? Both of you are spending time right now away from your kids on the stream talking to an atheist, right? Now, I think this is fun. I love this. But if Christianity was 100% false, you would be doing other things with your time, correct? So there's a cost to this for you. Now, you don't have to do this. I'm not saying anyone's making you, but you feel because of your faith and your interest in talking to atheists that this is a good use of your time, right? So there's a cost to your faith. You could be doing other things. If the faith says, for example, depending on how you interpret it, hey, gay marriage should not be allowed or should not be taught as being normal, that trans people should not be respected, or that any number of things, even if they're rather innocent, there's a cost to that because now I'm going to feel a need to speak up. I think you would hopefully both agree that as Christians, you're concerned about my soul. You're concerned about the souls of non-believers. I would like to think that's in part why you're here.
Absolutely.
So you're preaching to people, and you could be making them feel bad. You could be making them feel good, but you're influencing other people. So all of a sudden, if it was 100% true that your faith was wrong, then you've been doing all this, and you've been spending your time, and you've been telling people that they're sinful or going to hell when that wasn't true. So a cost has been exacted of your time and the emotional, I don't want to say damage, but like the emotional impact you've had on other people. And I've heard some pastors who have become atheists afterwards, and they said one of the biggest regrets was telling children that everyone was damned to hell and suffering and pain, and that if they didn't have a revelation, a born again moment, that they might go to hell forever. And they were like, children cried. Children were so upset. They were so afraid that their parents were going to hell for years. So again, I'm not trying to do an emotional appeal, right? I'm just saying believing in this has a cost. It's not nothing. And I have to weigh that against, do I really believe or not? And that, I guess I'll stop there and say that's where I would come back from.
Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, truthfully, everything you just said, if atheism is true, everything you just said ultimately honestly doesn't matter. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is if we're sitting here wasting our time and we make people feel bad, we're all just going to return to dust and our feelings won't matter in the first place. And so it wouldn't matter if I waste my time or if I spend my time doing something else, because ultimately when I pass and the person I made feel bad pass, nothing happens. So it honestly doesn't matter.
Yeah,
But
you're 100% right. It's the argument, if we're all just chemicals, nothing matters. Why shouldn't we go out and like rob banks and do terrible things? That's 100% true.
no, I'm not even going that far. I'm simply stating, that, I mean, that's another point, but I'm simply, trying to keep it, like civil, like what you're talking about, right? From a perspective of what actually is logical, right? Because I don't think all atheists believe that, just to go run rampant, right? I don't think
Thank
that.
you.
What I believe is what you just said. You said, hey, if Christianity is not true, and you're on here you might make someone feel good, but you also might make someone feel bad, right? Whether I make the person feel good or make the person feel bad, what the cost, it really doesn't matter, because when we all die, you're not going to remember me, I'm not going to remember you. So there is no actual cost, because in the atheistic worldview, nothing actually would truly have a cost because it means nothing. And when I mean means nothing, when you pass away, it's nothing after this. So ultimately, life doesn't really have a meaning to it.
Oh, you're 100% spot on. And what I'd say in response, because that's a very true statement, but you'll notice the language you used was very much like ultimate meaning. Does it have an ultimate purpose? And I think from a Christian worldview, that's true. You're like, what is my ultimate purpose? Because God has a purpose for me. That is the ultimate purpose, right? But in atheistic worldview, there is no ultimate purpose. But that doesn't mean I don't have purpose. I can give myself purpose. I can want things. I can desire things. I can value things like my family's well-being, my own well-being, my happiness, their happiness. And this is hard for, I think, Christians to understand, not to speak for you, but you don't have to have the word ultimate there to have these things. I don't worry about an ultimate meaning. I just worry about the meaning I have for my life and the meaning that people have assigned to me, like my wife's assigned to me or my friends who have assigned to me. That's enough for me. So my world doesn't operate on ultimate. I don't use that as the standard that I have to put myself up against.
No, truly what I'm saying, I'm not even saying ultimate meaning. Truly what I'm saying is like, for example, what you just said. If I am talking to people and I'm saying Christianity is true, right, and I am wrong, right, and there is no God, right,
Mm-hmm.
and you're saying, well, that was a cost to that because you wasted your time. You probably made people feel bad. You probably did this, you probably did that, and you spent time away from your kids and doing that and doing that. And all I'm simply saying is, why does it matter?
I can't answer that for you. Like if you don't think it matters, like if you were like, hey, in my worldview, if there's no God, time away from my family and kids doesn't matter, I'm not going to argue with you. Like I can't say it should matter to you. All I can say is that it matters to me, where I spend my time. And if it turns out that, I was wrong about my faith, and I was spending time talking about it and convincing other people, I would be like, well, crap, I wish I could get that time back. I would have rather spent it elsewhere. But that's just me. I'm not saying you should feel this way.
No. What I'm saying is from your worldview, not your personal opinion. From the worldview, because if God is not true, then that means atheism is true. What I'm saying is, if there is no God, right? If there is no God, why do you, Fallon, care if you spend time or don't spend time? Not that you like it, because we all have emotions, we all have feelings, right? So I understand that perspective. What I'm saying, what basis are you actually using as standard to measure why do you actually care? If there is no God and there's nothing after this, how do you measure I do care about it because of this? How do you measure?
Sure, I measure it against my feelings.
See, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I'm consistent about that. Like I have feelings, I have thoughts, I value things, and those are all subjective, right? Now, we can say if you value something, it's objectively true that you should do X, Y, and Z. But my initial subjective values, like loving my family or having emotions or wanting to talk to people, that's fine. It's just I don't go versus ultimate meaning or ultimate things. I don't have God to compare it against. That's the only difference.
Now, let's say you just said, you said you admit that you'll use your feelings. Now, what if I'm an atheist and I want to use my feelings for a different purpose, right? Because I think my purpose is to be Ted Bundy.
Sure.
And that's my purpose. Is there anything wrong with it?
I mean, this is going to get into where like it's subjective morals, man. Like I can argue why you killed.
I'm strictly talking about the emotion. You said you
sure.
you said you measure it based off of your emotions, because you said it's all subjective. So the subjectiveness actually comes from the emotion, right?
I'll put intellect in there because I do think about things too, but primarily let's go with emotions for now. Sure.
Yeah. So if I feel like I should be Ted Bundy or John Wayne Gacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not wrong, because my worldview says this is what makes me feel like, I'm the man in the world. So I'm not wrong. So don't take me to jail.
Yeah, I mean, like you would agree, like the lion who eats a baby cub isn't wrong, right? The lion was hungry, it ate the baby cub. It's not wrong to do that, right? Like you're like, you don't.
Humans and animals are different. Because, for example, have you ever seen a atheist lion?
No, hold on. We've been down this route, and we will, after you read the book and after I read Flu, we'll get into evolution. But let's not derail the conversation. I mean, it's your show, but I think we could derail it. But no, you're right. Like I think most atheists would go like, hey, if you're like, in my worldview, there's no God, there's no standard, I want to go out and hurt people because emotionally it makes me happy. Mm-hmm. I'd be like, okay, you obviously want to do that. Like, Can I say it's wrong? Sure. But when I say it's wrong, wait, remember, like, here's the thing. We got to have definitions, even in a subjective worldview, right? So let me give you an example. Let me ask you this, and I think
So
this is
you
a
have
neutral.
to build something.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: Is drinking acid, like, is drinking a gallon of Drano healthy or not?
Is it healthy?
Yeah. Is it healthy? Like, is it a healthy thing to drink a gallon of Drano?
If I feel it is, yes.
Well, no. I mean, so
Yeah,
this is
that's the worldview. That what
so
you're if I feel that it is and I can logically make it make sense to me, yes, it would be in that worldview, it would be healthy if I feel that it is.
So, and this brings up a great point. I think you said, Miss Carson, you said no, it's not, and you said it was, right. Is that correct? Did you say no? It's generally
Yeah,
not considered
I
healthy.
do. No.
Yeah, and so that's the point, right? And so if I say, when we talk about what's healthy, we generally mean, what do doctors recommend, what is best for our bodies and not harmful, right? That's generally what we mean when we use the word healthy. But you're right. Someone could say, hey, I think healthy is being in extraordinary pain and burning my stomach, and who are you to tell me that that's not healthy? Someone
Exactly.
can do that, right? But my question would be, is this actually an argument that people make? Is this something that we should take seriously in a real way? Because if
Yes,
someone says that, like, are you really going to be like, you don't, because after all, like, I don't know if you have to appeal to God to say it's unhealthy to drink Drano, right? I don't think we need to go up that level of to a supreme being to say healthy has to mean something. And to use that word, it means, not drinking Drano for one thing.
well, you say
But,
that because you live in the 21st century where there's
oh,
science. So if you would have lived 1500 years ago, 2000 years ago, 3000 years ago, right, where there's no scientists, there's no science, there's no discoveries, and you saw something, you said, hey, I don't have no water. This made me look like I could drink it, and you drink it. But
and you,
in the beginning, God said, "Hey, if it looks like this, or if it's by this area, if it had this might be poison ivy, this would poison you. Stay away from these foods." He's giving you a foundation with no science. Versus the only reason you know not to do these things is because science has discovered, oh, don't do these things. But that we're talking 2,000, 3,000 years later.
well,
So if you would have lived back then, how would you have determined that?
I feel like we're jumping
Someone would
around.
have
Like,
to
I,
die.
I don't want to jump back in time, because my only point was, if we're going to use words like healthy, we have to have a definition we agree on, right? That was my only point, is like, can we agree on the word, like, can we agree on what is healthy without relating to the Bible? Can we just say healthy, for example, is not damaging your internal organs by drinking Drano? Like, and I think we can say, yes, that's healthy. If your position is, no, I can disagree with every common, dictionary definition we have because I have free will and no God, the conversation doesn't go anywhere, because you can, but then I don't know what you mean by the word healthy.
That's
I'm
my
just,
point.
no, and that's fine, but I
Let
don't
me
think that's,
interject really
oh,
quickly.
sure,
Let me
please.
really quickly, because we're using the word healthy because that's the one you presented to the argument. But what we'll say is the point that we were making was good and bad, or right and
Mm-hmm.
wrong. And we have to think about that in relation to what God values, right? Which is us as human beings and relationships. And so when we're talking about good and bad, we can't say, like, okay, of course the standard of healthy is based on this criteria of the way implicating it into our current world and our reality. Humans have the free will to do that and to have laws and legislation and things that they abide by. But when we're talking about the word of God, he's trying to preserve us and let us understand what love, compassion, and unity amongst his creation looks and is supposed to feel like. So when we say the gravity of it really doesn't matter when it comes to healthy, you're completely right. But the gravity of it, when we have subjectiveness about what's right and wrong, does matter, because this implicates, like, I believe that a Black person is 2/3 or valueless. And then it's like, okay, that's their subjective view. And
Can I,
what can we judge that by?
so I would love to talk about slavery in the Bible, because I've been reading up on that. However, I have to go finish making dinner for my lovely wife who's been working all day. Because,
Another,
yeah,
God,
because I to your point, like from my viewpoint, and I think many scholars, including Christian scholars, like, slavery is pretty well endorsed in the Old Testament. Like, there is a permanent chattel class of slaves you can own, and
we're,
and
Alan,
That's
you know
not
what?
correct.
We're gonna actually get into that with our next caller. So I hope
yeah,
that you
so
listen.
yeah, I'll jump off. I'll make dinner, and then if you guys are still on, I'll try to follow up
What you
because I think
cooking,
that is.
Fallon?
What's
What you
that?
cooking? What you cooking?
Oh, making some spaghetti. Got some pork and some beef in there, and then a homemade sauce, and then just got some noodles I picked up at the store. So gonna
Lucky
gonna get
lady.
that done.
Lucky lady over there. Malik, you hear that? Fallon over there whooping it up. You hear? Lucky lady.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I'll be back later if I can. But enjoy your next talker.
Thanks. All right, Malik. Before we bring up Jeff, was there anything you want to say?
No, you can go ahead and bring them up.
Jeff, let's check your mic. You've been waiting for a good minute. We appreciate you for returning.
Oh, hello. Does my mic sound better today?
It
Yeah.
does. It really does.
Yeah, I have an audio interface here, and my browser wasn't picking it up on StreamYard, and I had to switch channels. But if it's working better now, that's great.
You high tech now, Jeff. Like you done went and ramped up on us.
Fantastic. And I just want to say, I agree with everything Falwyn said. Like I don't even think I could articulate things much better.
Yeah, by assumption, Jeff, we would assume. So, Jeff, what do you have? I know that you and Malik got into. I had to leave a bit early, and my camera died. I'm not as high tech, but you and Malik had a discussion prior stream, and I think that, of course, you're here to continue that discussion. But prior to that, what are your like blanket thoughts on God being all good? What would you say?
No.
No, yeah, that's what I got from last stream. I just wanted to, for people who didn't catch the last stream, I wanted them to know your position.
Yeah, I kind of want to maybe button up the slavery and the Matthew thing. Like, we got a little bit off topic later on. I was getting tired and stuff, so I might have, like I said, Falwyn was more articulate with his explanation of morals and stuff. I don't know if I could get better than that.
Well, are you well rested tonight? We are going to get right back into, because I wrote down some notes from when you were here last time, and we touched on Leviticus 25 and then Exodus 21. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right. Like, do you want to pull up Leviticus 25? And Jeff, that's 39 through 46. That's right.
Sure. There is a little bit more, but it isn't relevant, really.
Okay. We'll pull that up for you. Just for the viewers who didn't catch last stream, we'll read it again, and then we'll. Jeff, did you read it last time? Because you're more than able to read it again.
Hold on, I got to bring up a couple notes still. Okay. I'm more afraid of closing my window here because I got like 10 windows up.
Babe, can it get wider or no? You hear me, Malik?
Is it wider?
Yeah, like, or is it only? Can it only do portrait?
I can switch it. Well, it's because
Yeah.
I'm using my portrait monitor, so.
Oh, okay, no, that's fine. Oh,
I can
yeah, Malik
switch.
got a new monitor. He trying to show out now. Malik got him a new monitor.
I can switch it. I can pull this over here.
Okay.
So what should I read all the things? I got like a little synopsis of everything.
Well, we're gonna, for the viewers who didn't catch your last stream, we're gonna revisit the text and reread it.
Oh, all right, no
Just so
problem.
they're able to follow where we are. Okay.
Is that better?
Yes, and you could just zoom in. Perfect. All right, I'll go ahead and read it, just since I'm already here. If any who are dependent on you become so impoverished that they sell themselves to you, you shall not make them serve as slaves. They shall remain with you as hired or bound laborers. They shall serve with you until the year of Jubilee. Then they and their children with them shall be free from your authority, and they shall go back to their own family and return to their ancestral property. For they are my servants whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold as slaves are sold. You shall not rule over them with harshness, but shall fear your Lord God. Shall fear your God. As for the male and female slaves whom you may have, it is from the nations around you that you may acquire male and female slaves. You may also acquire them from among the aliens residing with you and from their families that are with you, who have been born in your land, and they may be your property. You may keep them as a possession for your children after you, for them to inherit as property. These you may treat as slaves, but as for you, your fellow Israelites, no one shall rule over the other with harshness. Sorry, y'all, I'm blind. Malik got it. That's why I said, can you put it to landscape? I'm blind. But okay, we got the generalization of that. Okay, Jeff, if you want to go ahead and give your perspective about this text, and then we'll respond.
Oh, all right. Well, from 39, that
Mm-hmm.
is strictly speaking about Hebrew slaves and servants. And then in the 44 through 45 or 6, it's about foreign slaves owned for life.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty much it, right? Like, and oh, sorry if you want. And the Hebrew slaves can go free after 7 years in the year of
Okay,
Jubilee.
Malik, did you want to start with this?
Yeah, I can. Or you can go ahead. Go ahead.
You're good. Go ahead.
Okay, so the first point I want to address is the permanent part, because that's mostly your main concern, right?
Sure, that is the main part. Yes.
Okay. What verse was this? Let me pull it up again. Verse where it says you are and you inherit them as property. Okay, let me show you something. So we both agree. We both agree here, right? We both agree here in 39 to 40. It's talking about Hebrew Israelites, people who are of the nation, right?
Mm-hmm.
In 39, yeah.
Yes, this is people who are of the nation.
Yeah. All the way up to 44. It's all about the Hebrews.
Yep. Okay. So they're allowed to go free, right?
Yes.
Okay. But you're saying, let me change the version so you can see the word permanent. So
I do enjoy that you're using the. Oh, what is that? The Catholic edition? Oh, this
yeah, it's
version.
Catholic edition. But I use NASB as well. What do you use?
The NRSVU. To be honest, I use like 4 or 5.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. That's
It
fine.
depends on what I'm trying to look at. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm looking for the Hebrew, there's a site called Sefaria, which is using the Jewish Publication Society's translation, and it's basically the top of the line academic Jewish resource for Hebrew. And then if I
Oh,
want to know what the gospel writers are talking about, I'll read the Breton English Standard, which is a translation of the Septuagint in the time of who the gospel writers would have read.
yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah. So this one, do you use NASB at all or no?
actually, no, I don't.
Okay. Let's use the translation you use. What's like the one you use the most?
I use the NRSVU E. But
NR.
to be honest, I'm going to say use the NET Bible because the one
Right
right
here.
above you,
Right, baby, you missed it.
New
Go.
English. Oh, that one's good too. But the New English or NET,
They're right
well,
there.
you're going to love this one. This one's great.
Okay.
Do you have the notes on this page? This is a Bible Gateway, correct? Yes.
Yes.
Do you have like a little? Okay. Okay, they have the footnotes on. All right, great, but I don't see them for some reason.
They're at the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's because I'm zoomed in. That's why.
So yeah, this translation here, this is like a very academic linguistic translation. It'll give you definitions. You'll see when we bring up some stuff.
Okay. Yeah. So right here, 39 to 40, we already established this. This is
Hebrew slaves that could be freed after 6 years or 7
yeah,
years.
and yeah, they'll be freed on the 7th year. Correct.
Yes.
And then on 40, we're saying that this is the people who are not of the nation. They can
Yes.
be enslaved permanently.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I want to show you something very interesting because this word permanent has nuance and context to it. Let me show you.
Actually, hold on. Let me bring up my. I got so many tabs open, guys. This is.
Let me show you. So if you see Ezekiel, it says, "You must allot it as an inheritance among yourselves and for the resident foreigners who live among you, who have fathered sons among you. You must treat them as native born among the people of Israel. They will be allotted an inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel. In whatever tribe the resident foreigner lives, there you will give him his inheritance, declares the sovereign Lord." That's one point I want to make. So they're taught here that foreigners are to be treated as native born, meaning as a Hebrew, meaning as an Israelite.
Okay,
That's my first point.
All right. Well, give me a second too, because I'm gonna look up my stuff on that. I just
Did I
got to
give you-
remember that. What was that? Ezekiel 27.
Ezekiel 47. 47, 22 through 30, 22 through 23.
That's great. I just let you know I will forget it in about 10 seconds.
Ezekiel 47, 22
Through
through
23.
23. Yes.
Yes, I'm working on it. I just, like I said, I got so many tabs. I got the commentaries opened. So 33, you say?
Yeah.
47, 22 through 23.
Yes.
Oh, I need my glasses.
Me too.
Okay, while you're doing that, I want to give another point. Now, let's go to Deuteronomy. It says, "You must not return an escaped slave to his
Okay,
master when
I do
he
know
has
this one.
run away to you. Indeed, he may live among you in any place he chooses, in whichever of your village he prefers. You must not oppress him." So I thought that they were slaves to them permanently. How can they be able to escape? This is not the same as American slavery, as chattel slavery. It's not the same with, because in American slavery they were kidnapped for one, and if they were to escape, they were going to be returned to their slave master. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So we have here God stating that if they're being abused and they run away, you don't have to return them because they're being mistreated wherever they came from. That's why they ran away in the first place. So we have God also giving stipulations on how to treat slaves. That's another point.
Okay, before you move on for that one, I do have an answer for that one. But I'm still, what is it, 37?
For
Are you talking about-
Ezekiel? You're talking
Yeah,
about for
I'm
Ezekiel?
Yeah,
47, 22 through
47. 47.
Yeah, it was
all right.
chapter 47, verses 22 through 23.
47, 22.
You pull that one up,
23.
and then we can start there when he finds it. Let's give him more time.
Yeah, like this thing is like huge. So 47. What did you say? 33?
No,
We put
20.
it on the screen.
All right, all right. I found the area here.
It's right here.
All right. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like my comment, unless I'm reading this wrong. I don't see anything about this. They talk about this is only like a 1-volume commentary. Like you could get, 3-page volumes, but this is like the single issue commentary.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to address this one. I'm not sure exactly what it's referring to. But
Okay.
So if you read it here, again, it's speaking about what we're speaking about. We stated at the very top, because we're talking about Leviticus, right? Only ones who can go free are people of the
Hebrew.
nation. And
Mhm.
if they're not of the nation, they can pretty much do whatever they want with them, and they can have them permanently. That's the premise that you're sticking with. And I'm showing you here that this is not true, because they're taught that you must treat them as native borns if they're foreigners. Meaning, even if they're your slave, even if they're your friend, even if they're in town, if they are a foreigner, meaning they're not a Hebrew, they're not amongst the group of Israel, you are to treat them as such. You are supposed to treat them as if they're native born. It didn't say as if they're into the nation, and you're like, hey, I'm gonna be show you hospitality. It says you must treat them as a native born.
Oh, all right. So I read most of that chapter now. So if you go back to chapter 13 or verse 13, Ezekiel 47:13, basically this is God separating the boundaries of Israel amongst the 12 tribes. So there are people who are non-believers that live in the land, and they're telling them, well, they're already here, so treat them as they are one of us. It's not about slaves.
No, what I'm showing you is if you're a foreigner, you're not a Hebrew, right?
No, a foreigner is from another nation.
Yes, which means you're not a Hebrew.
Yeah, but the land of Canaan was filled with a bunch of non-Hebrews.
Okay, again, we established here at the very top that we're talking about the only ones who has any type
Well,
of leeway of anything.
well, like I said, you should go back to verse 13,
I understand what you're saying.
because, like I said, he's dividing the land amongst the tribes.
I get that, but
There are resident Canaanites in that land still, and he's saying that those people should be also treated like part of the nation of Israel type. That's what Ezekiel is referring to.
if they're a foreigner, they're not a born Hebrew Israelite, right?
No, it says aliens. It doesn't say foreigner.
That is the same thing. We're not going off of definitions.
Well, aliens is like it's
Because
a Canaanite.
If you want to use that game, then I can. That's why I said I'm trying to stick to how you're doing it. But if you want to use that game, and I can go back to this, I can go back to a different translation of Leviticus to where it says alien in place of the other words.
Yeah, they're talking about resident alien. You shall allot this inheritance for yourself and the aliens who remind. Yeah, this sounds exactly what I'm saying. Like they're dividing up the land of Canaan into 12 tribes, and there's people that are not Hebrews that are living in the land, but they're not from other nations around them, so they're allowed to continue to live here. Don't be mean to them.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is,
to be honest, I never heard this verse used for the anti-slavery thing. The other one I have, and that's a good one, by the way.
No. What I'm establishing is they're supposed to treat even if they're outside, or whether they're a slave or not. It doesn't say only if they're slaves, then treat them like this. If they're not slaves, treat them like this. What I'm establishing is if they are a foreigner, slave or not, they're supposed to treat them as if they are native born. And let's go back to I'll keep going.
Well, let's go to the next one you said, which was a good one.
That's what I'm about to do.
But quick question before you get to Deuteronomy. This is, we are talking about in Leviticus the context of war, right?
No.
So in Leviticus, we have no war going on. You're just saying that God is dividing it. Because I've read...
Ezekiel is talking about them dividing the lands amongst the tribes.
My bad. I meant Ezekiel.
Yeah.
But Leviticus, because the overall context of this is the Israelites are invading the land where the Canaanites live. Is this right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So the nuance between foreigners living amongst them, wouldn't they be enslaved? Or you're saying that there can just be free foreigners who are just...
I'm not saying they're not foreigners. Those people live there and they're being invaded. Those people are from the land.
They would be slaves.
But they're foreigners amongst
not
the
all
Israelites.
of them. They'd be aliens amongst the
If I come invade your space and take over, what are you to me?
Say that again?
If I come invade your space and take it over, what are you under me now?
Well, it could be a few things. I could be a subject. I could be a slave.
So when it says foreigner here in Ezekiel, right, it's talking whether they're free or a slave, you must treat them as a native born.
Yeah, because they've been there.
But I thought that
you said it has nothing to do with slave. You said it has nothing to do with slave. But it does, because it's telling them that they're supposed to treat whether they're an alien or a slave because they're getting invaded.
It's more likely.
It's more likely.
Like I said, just read from verse 13. Like I said, this is all just
You
about
just
dividing
admitted,
the land.
Jeff, you just admitted yourself it could be a slave. But
Well,
you
it could
just
be a
don't want
slave.
to admit it because you see the point that it's stating here they're supposed to treat even if they're a slave as a native born. You just don't want to admit
It
that
doesn't say that anything. It just says for the inheritance for yourselves and for the aliens who reside among you and
did
have
you not
father
just admit
children.
if I invade your land, you would be a slave? You didn't
If
just say
you
that.
if you captured me in battle,
So
there's
if what do you think they have to do in order to take over their land?
they could offer them terms of peace, and then they become slaves.
That's not what it says, Jeff. That's not what the text says.
Oh, not that one, but another one I'm going to bring you to also.
So
Okay.
so when they take over, what are they?
Like I said, this verse in Ezekiel, this isn't about slavery at all. I've never heard this brought up for an apologetic before in my life. But reading the verse, they're just separating the lands amongst them. There's people that still live in the lands that they've taken over, and they're letting those people
Thank
live
you.
with them.
You see what you just said, Jeff? They took
Yes.
it over. Therefore, they are what?
They can be slaves. They can be their subjects of the land.
So if they can be slaves, this applies to them too in this verse. Yes.
No.
Yes, it does.
And no, this is different also because this is Ezekiel in the future.
Honest, man. You're being
Okay,
dishonest.
Malik,
No, I'm
Malik,
not being
Malik,
let me answer
bring up-
this.
quick question. Quick interjection. Malik, bring
All
up Leviticus 19:33 through 34. Let's take it back to
Okay.
Leviticus.
Well, just I forgot what I was going to say anyways. Shit.
Leviticus 19:33 through 34. But because he doesn't, the Ezekiel one is not. Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Ezekiel is a prophet in the future. The other laws are laws for Moses and God.
Okay.
Like,
When a resident
this-
foreigner lives with you in your land, you must not oppress him. The resident foreigner who lives with you must be to you as a native citizen amongst you. So you must
Yes.
love the foreigner as yourself because you were foreigners in the land of Egypt. I am
Yes.
the Lord your God.
That verse there is like exactly talking about the Ezekiel verse you're talking about. That has nothing to do with slaves. That's just foreigners that are residents in your land.
Jeff,
Jeff, you're being
If-
so dishonest.
if the Israel, God says, I'm going to deliver this land to you and you're going to defeat your enemies. So therefore, when the Israelites go into this land for the Canaanites, they are coming for war. They're going to overtake their land. These are not their friends. They're
They
not
could
friends.
offer them peace. Well, like,
That's not what the text says. We
yeah,
know
not
is
this one. Give me one. Give me a second here, please.
Yeah, but you're being dishonest. You know what this is saying. You just don't want to admit it.
No, I know what it's saying. I don't think it's
So
saying what
then
it's
they,
saying.
you
So
just
here, go to
admitted
do
that
go.
this could be slaves in this text. It could be, right?
Sorry, what text? We're jumping back and forth in a few.
The foreigners can be slaves, right?
From what, Ezekiel or Leviticus?
I
Both.
wanted, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
like both of those aren't referring to slaves.
I said, can they be slaves because they're overtaking a land, so they could be slaves also, right?
Yes.
Right?
I guess technically they could be, but this is not specifically. They have the slave laws. This is not part of the slave law section. Like this is not.
Jeff, we're not going to be able to get anywhere if you're not going to be honest.
I am being honest. These are not.
So-
These are resident aliens that
If
live
they're
amongst
taking-
you.
If they're taking over their land, some of them could have been free, but some of them also could have been slaves. Yes?
Yes.
So then that means this verse would have to apply to both, rather if they're free or if they're slave, right?
No, because slaves are not the same as resident aliens. Because, like, okay, sorry. If we go back to those Leviticus 40,
Leviticus 19. Okay.
yeah, but if we go back to the 44, 46, if you go a little past that, it talks about the resident aliens that live among you and how they could own Hebrews and stuff. Resident aliens live in the land.
So the word for you, it must say slave for you, right? It must say slave. That's what you're saying, right?
Well, technically, like I said, Hebrew, there is no word for slave.
Okay. What is
But
Ebed then?
you're making a point. You're
Ebed-
making a point. You're saying I'm talking about slaves, but now you're saying, well, it doesn't say slave.
Well,
so
like I said, the word avad means like servant, but it's the context
not
of the word
avad.
that determines. Well, what is it?
Ed.
Sure,
E-B-E.
sure. That's it. I don't know that Hebrew. I know it's a word, and I know the word means like servant or
It means
Ebed.
slave.
Come on, Ebed.
yeah, it can in certain contexts.
Okay, so let's zoom out a little bit because I know we kind of get into
But no,
definitions.
all right, no. Before we move on from the resident alien parts, go.
Hold on,
So
Jeff. Hold on one second. Hold on, Jeff.
Liv,
One second.
all right,
We're gonna zoom out a bit because we get into these conversations and we start to go definitions, right? So just for a quick recap, we have God talking about foreigners, right? When God already gave the Israelites the understanding that they're going to conquer this land, take it over, and that He's going to drive out or they're going to kill the Canaanites, right? This is the overview that we already understand. So when they go into this land, they invade it, and then the people they enslave them. They enslave the Canaanites, and then through this, we now understand that there is laws being put in place for how to treat the people that they've enslaved. Can we all agree on this?
yes,
Okay. So when we talk about slave in Hebrew, it can be one of three things. It can be a voluntary slave, someone who has sold themselves into slavery. Because remember, this is an economy established by man. God is coming. This slavery was already happening prior to the laws being given by God. So God comes and regulates the economy and the way that they are functioning in the already established society. Okay. Can we agree on that?
sure,
Okay, so moving forward, when we have the word slave, we have voluntary servant, we have indentured servant, and we have chattel slave, right? Chattel
yes,
slaves normally have the foreign captives and the war victims and all of that, but they still have protections. God still gives them protections in this context.
yes,
Okay, so when we talk about because when you talked about Ezekiel and you said Ezekiel is a prophet, that's a beautiful observation, Jeff, because Ezekiel is given a future vision of what God wants, which is foreigners who live amongst Israel to receive land inheritance. Because God is not coming to just do immediate fixes. He's doing a gradual abolition of slavery. And so as he does this gradually, because the economy is resting on the way that man has
I'm going
established.
to I'm going to
Okay,
disagree with that part.
you disagree with what?
That God was slowly abolishing slavery, but that's a different conversation, I think.
Okay, that's I'm giving an overview, but that's the
Yes,
perspective that I have.
yes,
Okay, so
yes,
when we're doing this, when God is doing this, He's mitigating slavery. This is a civil thing. Remember, this is all civil. This is not ethics. Okay, so when these slaves are coming, or when they're ruling over these slaves, God gives what's it called, protections. And so God regulates slavery, protection over life and health, and freedom for Hebrew servants, and limited abuse and exploitation for the chattel slaves that they get. Is that correct?
I'm going to say mostly,
Okay, mostly. Okay,
like
so
95%. I agree with.
okay, so then when we get into the phases where it's like permanence, right? God also shows that these people have a choice, because let's go to an example. We all understand who Ruth and Rahab were. Do you, Jeff?
Vaguely,
Okay.
like I do. If you bring it up, if I look it up, it'll come back to me.
Okay. So what we understand is Ruth is a Moabite and
Yes,
Rahab is a Canaanite, and they're
yes,
women. So we talk
yes,
about consent, we talk about all of these things, but these are two women examples. Ruth marries Boaz, meaning that she has some type of, she's a foreigner. She's not an Israelite. She's not
yes,
amongst them. And she marries Boaz and integrates with them. Rahab is a Canaanite from the land. She marries an Israelite and she becomes an ancestor to Jesus. So
yes.
in the reality, we're sitting over here saying that they don't have rights and
Right.
they were treated poorly and they were stomped on and all these things, but it's just not true, Jeff.
I never said that.
Okay, from the last conversation, that was the essence of what I got, but you can definitely provide clarity. Go ahead.
So, like I said, the resident aliens that live in the land are not being mistreated or being slaves. Like,
Okay.
let me just continue with this verse in Leviticus 47.
Wait, so,
So-
but if they're not being mistreated and they're not being abused, then what is your
Those
issue?
ones. No, 40. No, they can be abused.
Bring up the
Oh,
verse.
oh,
What is it? Leviticus what?
We're back to the 44, 46, but if you continue after 47, it's talking about resident aliens among you. It says, if resident aliens among you prosper, and if any of your kin, talking about Hebrews, fall into difficulty, and one of them sell themselves to an alien, or to the branch of the alien's family, after they have sold themselves, they shall have the right to redemption. One of their brothers may redeem them, or their uncle or uncle's sons. So this is saying that there's resident aliens who are not Hebrews that live in the land that are rich because they're buying slaves. So there are resident aliens who are not Hebrews in the land of Israel that are being treated like people. Like in verse 44 is talking about foreign people that are not in the land of Israel, and they could have those people as slaves permanently. And so that's where I'm kind of at with that. But
Yeah, but you made a statement just a second ago. You said that you're not necessarily saying that the slaves are being mistreated or abused. So then what's your issue?
oh no, the slaves can be abused.
It can be, but you just said, I'm not saying, because you mentioned Ruth and Boaz,
Yeah,
and he's
they're
saying that
they're fine.
these
No,
slaves,
I'm not saying those. Well, were some of them slaves.
They're integrating as foreigners into the society
Yeah,
that
because they live. That's what I mean. They live in the land, and they're just living in the land. They're not
okay,
slaves.
so Jeff, what
Well, they
about
might have
all
been.
of
I forget.
the laws that God puts in place when it comes down to him telling them to treat them well? Don't rule over them ruthlessly. The master will be punished if he kills a slave. All of these things in the way that they have already established their society.
Man, we got lots to cover.
yeah,
So,
like if a man strikes the eye of his male or female servant so that he destroys it,
yes, what you're saying, I totally agree with what you're saying. 100%.
You didn't say it yet, Jeff. You gotta.
Yeah, I know what it's. This is about, eye for eye. If you knock out his tooth, you might let him free, right?
Okay,
yeah.
so
So how would they be permanent slaves if he's saying they won't be a permanent slave if you do something to them, if you harm them?
Well, that's what is that? Exodus.
Yeah, this is Exodus. This is
Give me a
before
second.
Leviticus.
Yeah. Well, okay. Give me a second here. So I got so many tabs up here. I had this one set up. Exodus what?
Because your
21,
issue is the
26.
permanent slave part. But God is saying they're not permanent slaves if you harm them, if you oppress them, if you permanently damage them, or
What?
if you kill them.
and
Sorry.
he
What?
even goes back to, okay, go ahead. What verse was
So,
it?
what was that verse you had up again?
Exodus 21, 26 through 27.
And could you bring it on the screen here? What did that say?
It's right here.
Exodus 20. What
You got
am I? 21, 26. How come mine does? How come mine doesn't say that?
Doesn't say
Yeah.
what.
Original?
Oh, maybe am I reading the wrong one? Oh, I'm reading the wrong one.
You said you used the NET version.
Yeah, I was just in the wrong verse. Sorry. No, I totally agree with what's happening there. But go back to verse 20.
Wait. You said that they are permanent slaves, and this is wrong. And God
Well,
is
technically, these are actually talking about. This is in the Hebrew indentured servitude stuff. These ain't the permanent slaves from Leviticus 44. But if you go back to verse 20 here, Ezekiel or Exodus 20, verse 20, you should start from there.
So you're saying this applies not to foreign slaves. This only applies to Hebrew slaves.
Yes, but
Where do you
but
get
fair
that?
enough. They would do this. Well, like I said, go back to verse 20, or yeah, verse 20, man. That's an important verse. It's going to be 20 and 21 actually. You got it up there again. First, I don't know if my screen stopped. So yeah, read verse 20. if a man strikes his male servant or his female servant with a staff, or they die as a result of the blow, he will surely be punished. But well, read the rest. However, if the injured servant survives a day or two, the owner will not be punished. So basically, he's saying you're allowed to beat your slave, and if they live for a day or two, you're off the hook. If he dies after 4 days, you're good.
No, he doesn't say you're off the hook. What it actually says there is you're not allowed to have vengeance. So what that means is, what that means is, because they belong to the master, right? You're not allowed to seek vengeance. Yes, they beat them, but you're not allowed to go, have vengeance and then beat them, or you're not allowed to have vengeance and murder them.
I
and
agree.
basically have revenge. But it doesn't mean that they're exempt from consequences.
No, it's saying you're allowed to beat them.
Can I interject for a second? So we have to be honest about the ancient time and the way that they are living. So prior to the regulations that God has given, what are the people in the land? They're operating in slavery. How are they treating their slaves?
Who, the other people prior to the Hebrews?
Yeah. How are the Canaanites treating slaves? And how were the
you-
people in Egypt treating slaves?
If you give me a minute, I know some of the laws were better and some of the laws were worse.
Not just from a general statement, we can say that prior to the regulations that God has put in place, were they beating, killing, and torturing their slaves?
Yes, but I don't think for like fun.
No, not
I don't think the Hebrews are doing it for fun either, by the way.
No. So when we're coming towards, again, God did not abolish slavery. God didn't create it, and he didn't abolish it in his law. So what he's doing is regulating it. Now, mind you, we have to remember the people that they are taking in as slaves. It's the Canaanites. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, roughly. There's others, but
The land is owned by the Canaanites. The land that they're invading is the Canaanites. So we would just statement would be
the nations around them ain't Canaanites, so they're taking from other people too.
Okay, but these are pagan lands. They're not under the God of Israel. Okay, and so in the Bible, it's described what they're doing in these lands. They're having incest. They're doing infanticide. They're doing bestiality, homosexuality. They're murdering each other. They're wicked.
Baby sacrifice.
Okay, before we get into some of that, because those are all different topics, we should probably just stick on this.
You have to give me a second.
I could give you some verses about God, accepting and asking for child sacrifice, but that's a different topic.
Okay, we'll then pin that, write it down. So when we're talking about this right here, when we're talking about all of the things that the pagans were doing at this time, then we understand that these people, we would say, don't have the best character, that they're pretty aggressive and they're doing some things that are pretty frightening.
Well, I don't know if I agree with all that necessarily, but I will say
that the murders and the killing babies and the bestiality is not heinous.
To be honest, I think everybody was doing it.
But again, this is prior.
The difference between the two, when the Israelites did it, they were stoned for it and they were killed for it. Everyone else, there was no consequences for any of these actions. The God of Israel said there will be consequences. If y'all do it, there's going to be consequences for you guys. This is why they had rules and regulations. So when they did it, they had judgment come up on them if they did these things. The rest did not.
Okay, we're a little bit off. We're not off topic.
I'm gonna bring it around. I know that I'm making a point with the character of the people that they're taking as slaves.
Well, this is where the problem's going to be, because how do I explain this?
And also, I just want to point out that God never is accepting to any child sacrifice. Also, that's false.
That's another conversation till we're done these ones, I think. But
well, let me just finish.
I'm going to say the stuff about the ancient Near East. There's a lot to learn about that, and it's really, I don't know where to begin at the moment. So
okay, Jeff.
I will say this one thing though, about the slavery laws of the ancient Near East. While the Hebrews did improve a lot of the laws of what the other people were doing, some of the laws were worse, such as most of the Hittites and the Babylonian laws. Actually, their indentured servants would go free after 3 years. So that was one thing that was better about their slavery. But that's that's a whole different topic about ancient Near East cultures.
Okay. So when they're taking in these slaves from the place that they just conquered, these people, whether you agree or not, are wicked. And so when it comes down, if God says, thou shalt not strike a slave, thou shalt not have any type of aggression or interaction with the slave that is negative, then that leaves them to whatever the slave decides to do. Because they're wicked, they can't defend themselves. This
Oh,
slavery is already very aggressive, and they're doing all type of stuff without the regulation. This is how the culture is already functioning. So to say, okay, now we're not doing any of that no more, who are the people that we're bringing into our homes?
the foreigners?
Yeah, I think the point she's making is, if what you want God to say is, thou shalt not be a slave ever. And the reason she's saying he doesn't say this is because what if a slave turns on you? Or what if a slave does this? Or what if a slave is disobedient? Or what if a slave does these things, right? How do the Israelites protect themselves from the slaves?
Because they already don't want to be there, and they don't want to be doing what it is.
So if they decided to, beat the Israelites, what do you want the Israelites to do then? Because
No,
they're
well,
supposed they're
well, yeah,
supposed to
that's a
abide
different
by-
situation. Like, yeah, if they're defending that, they're allowed to do that. They got all the laws for that stuff, right? Like
Yeah,
the
so
slaves
why-
are still following the laws of Moses
So
here. Like,
that's why God doesn't say, thou shalt not beat them. You're saying, well, he allows them to beat them.
yeah,
The
it
reason he
says it.
doesn't- Yeah, you said he shouldn't allow them. He allows them to beat them.
Yeah, he's saying when a slave owner does do it, just make sure you don't kill them.
He's
And
protecting.
if you do harm them, you're going to be punished. Like if you knock out a tooth, you'll set them free
So
per se.
he's regulating both scenarios. If there is a situation where you got to defend yourself, or if there's a situation where it gets out of hand, there's a punishment for this if you go this far. But then there's not a punishment if you go this far, but you shall not seek vengeance. He's regulating the two because he knows human nature.
Technically, I think he just should have said nobody should own people, but
Okay. Okay, great point. Nobody should own people. So you're saying that he should have came in and said slavery's over. Like
that would definitely be a great thing at the time period and everything. Sorry, I can't hear you. I don't know if something happened on my end or not.
Sorry, I was talking to my daughter.
Sorry.
Okay, so you want God to come in and say, through this
No,
law.
I don't. It'd be nice.
Well, I'm
if
saying you're saying this would be best. This was your suggestion, right? Your suggestion is to say there are no slaves. Slavery's over, right?
Well, yeah, he did it for the Hebrews, right? So he could have did that for
No, the
everybody.
Hebrews were slaves.
Yeah, but he told them after they left that they wouldn't be slaves again.
Yeah,
per
but
se.
basically what you're
that's
getting
wrong,
at is
but-
slaves shouldn't exist at all.
Correct.
Yes.
Sorry,
So Hebrews were not above this. They were slaves too.
Yes.
Okay, so again,
But that's why they made the rules about Hebrew slaves being freed after 6 years, because Hebrews were not like the other slaves; they were God slaves.
I'm gonna get to that point in just a
But-
second. But when
fair enough.
we're talking about slavery and just saying there's no more slavery, the economy that man has established on their own includes slavery. So he comes and he says there's no more slaves. What does that mean for the people who are living good? People who are using their slaves as they're treating their slaves well, for people who have sold themselves into slavery to pay their debt, for people who are voluntarily slaves for
Hey.
wages. This was the economy.
Fair enough. I don't think the economy is a good basis for morals, but
Man established the economy, not God.
yeah, but if you're going to like justify slavery because of the economy, that just seems
Be mad at
wrong.
man. That's the economy
hey,
that goes.
Fair enough, but God could have just said no slaves. You could get your economy another way. But
Okay, so
That's-
we'll let that go. But you
Yeah.
understand what I'm saying. So when we move forward and we talk about them being like permanent slaves, God even
Let-
says that if they want to do Passover with you, that you must treat them
yes,
like family, just like you
Yes.
have to love them
Yes.
like you love yourself.
maybe I should reiterate this point. I don't think all slavery that they did was bad. Like you people are saying that some people were accepted into their families and stuff. But not all of it was good, and not all of it started good.
Right. None the entire
But that's because of the
way that
flaw
they
of man, not the
was
flaw of God.
horrible.
That's the flaw of man, not the flaw of God.
God
That's
is regulating in a fallen state already. The what they've already established is wicked, and he's regulating within that through grace and mercy. He's literally regulating what they already created.
I feel like if we go to the fall, that's a whole different argument at the moment. But
No,
I
I mean
think
that they're all in the fallen. That's not the point, Jeff. You
yes,
get what I'm
yes.
saying. They're literally in a horrible. They're existing horribly already. God comes and regulates within their horrible existence what they've created for themselves. God didn't
they
say you should have slaves. They did that on their own.
No, God said you're allowed to have slaves.
No, God
okay.
regulates.
I'll give you.
But there's a couple other verses that we haven't addressed about. You mentioned the one about the runaway slaves.
What verse was it?
I forget which one. Malik brought it up earlier, but I wanted to get back. It was before we mentioned the Ezekiel. He was talking about if a runaway slave runs away and he's freed or something.
You must not, this is Deuteronomy 23:15-16. You
Yes.
must not return an escaped slave to his master when he has run away to you. Indeed, he may live among you in any place he chooses, in whichever of your villages he prefers. You must not oppress him.
Yeah, so this is actually a weird one because it's not confined with other slavery laws. Like if you look at the verses before this, it's like property right. There's weird things. It's temple prostitutes is the next verse. Like this is a weird line out of the. It's weirdly put in the Bible, and there's really no explanation. But from what I understand, and I could be wrong about this, in like Talmudic writings and stuff, they understood this verse to mean if a slave runs away from another nation and comes to your nation, then they're emancipated and treated like one in your land.
No,
Yeah,
because
really,
if that were
Pardon?
if that were true, yeah, you're just making up stuff, man.
Jeff,
I'm
you
not
playing.
making up stuff.
You
Yeah, because
playing.
if that were true, all the other verses, they're not. The people.
Well, like why is this verse out of place compared to the other slave laws?
Well, what we're stating is here is in the other verses you see that they say foreigners or aliens. So if they were talking about foreigners or aliens, it would say you must not return a foreigner slave.
To be
That's what it would
fair,
say.
it also could also mean like if you already own a foreigner and you want to you're good to him, you could free him, emancipation, and then if you emancipate that foreigner, other people can't recapture him because if this law is what it says it is, are you there? Or can I hear you?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know if my. So if this law is what it says it is, all those other verses about selling your daughter or like what would stop me from selling my kids into slavery, collecting some money, and then having all my kids run back to me the next night? According to this verse in Deuteronomy 23, it would sound like, oh, I get to have my kids back and they're free, but I just got a bunch of money for them. So that's why this law it's weird.
Well, it's mainly what this law is speaking about. It's speaking about treatment of the unprivileged. That's why it doesn't specify if it's a foreigner or if it's a Hebrew, because it's speaking about people who. Because if you are a slave owner, usually you have some type of status, some level of wealth, some
Yes.
level of a comfortable life. So it's speaking to anyone that is unprivileged and they're under this. It's anyone that's under the umbrella of privilege. You have privilege and then you have the unprivileged. If you're unprivileged, this is how you're supposed to treat the unprivileged, because the unprivileged could be in the household of someone who is privileged, but the privileged is mistreating them just because they're unprivileged, and they run away and you catch them, and God is telling them, hey, if you catch this person, they probably ran away because they were being oppressed. So I'm telling you, you don't have to return them, and you must not oppress them, because that's why they ran away in the first place. That's why it doesn't tell you who it is, who's the, if it's a Hebrew or if it's a foreigner, because it applies to anyone that's unprivileged.
Said I'm pretty sure this is all about emancipation.
No,
But
it's about the treatment of an unprivileged. That's why he says you
well,
must not oppress.
they
You
have the
must not
laws
oppress.
for the mistreatment and stuff. So the master would be punished if they were mistreating their slaves that they ran away, because
Yeah, but this
that's
one
what
is
the knock.
specifically talking about someone who ran away.
Yeah, well, it says a slave who escaped to you from their owners shall not get. So, like I said, so what would be stopping me from selling my kids and then having them run back to me?
What does that have to do with the verse?
Well, because this is saying a slave who escapes from you, you shall not give them back to their owners. So I sold my kids to
No,
somebody
it
else.
doesn't say.
What?
It doesn't say you should not give back a slave that escaped from you. It says
No, to you.
it says you must not return an escaped slave to his master.
Yes.
So it's speaking about someone encountering
Yes.
someone who ran away from a slave owner.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't
But
understand.
what I'm saying
Talking
is,
about your kids and having them run back to you. I don't.
okay, we agree from Exodus 21 that I could sell my daughter or my sons as a slave to some other Hebrew, right?
Well, for male and female, this is different.
Yeah, I know. The female stays forever and the guy gets to leave after 7 years. But I could sell them to whomever, right?
Well, the reason I'm saying it's different because the female is usually being brought in for either the man or the man's son, so that way she could be looked at as a wife. And if he doesn't like her, then he has to let her go because he has deceived her. That's what it says. It says deceitful.
Yeah, I don't
Yes,
think that was how it was.
acquired her.
No, that's not what it says. But
It does. It says he deceitfully acquired her.
we don't have to go back to that. But we did that yesterday, didn't we?
Well, the point that I'm making is that this clearly is stating that someone ran away because they were oppressed as a slave.
Yeah, but that's what well, it doesn't say that. It just says a slave who escapes to you from their owners shall not be given back to them. So now my little thought experiment is like,
So why would they run?
well, who knows? Maybe they just wanted to be free. Maybe they were in the next nation and they heard that if I escape, that the Israeli people are nice and they'll let me live amongst them without being a slave.
Okay, let's take that. Let's say I agree with you.
Sure.
God gives you a way to abolish slavery. So I just fixed your problem that you have with God. You just said that this is about abolishment. So obviously God gave an explanation. You can abolish
But
slavery.
like I said, I don't know if that's the thing. Like I said, I heard this is like possibly about emancipation. Like
So
you
then
even.
then that means God gave them some regulations on how you can abolish slavery.
Sure. If
So
you
the-
want to, but
so
the most of it is about owning and how to treat them.
But you just said this is possibly about emancipation. So therefore, God gave them in the Bible some way to abolish slavery, right?
Sure.
So then, how's he immoral if he gave you a way out?
Yeah, but all the other verses that are saying that you can
Yeah,
go
but
in
that
for
doesn't
life.
matter. Those verses won't matter if I just run away.
Huh? What?
All those verses you're talking about, you're saying you permanent slave this, permanent slave that, da, da, da,
That's
da,
what
da.
it says.
It won't matter if I run away because God told me how I can not be a slave forever.
Well, that's
He
what I
said,
mean.
"I'll run away."
If you're a Hebrew and you run away to another Hebrew, I don't think you're being set free. Now, if you were a Hebrew and you ran to another nation, if that nation was good enough, maybe they'd let you free,
You
but
just
I doubt
said-
it.
You just said this verse is possibly about emancipation, which is
Yes.
abolishment. Therefore, God is giving them a way to abolish slavery. Therefore,
You can't. Yes,
it
like I said.
doesn't matter what any of the other verses say. If I know this verse, if I'm a Hebrew or a foreigner, if I know this verse and I run away, I'm good. Yes?
Say that
What is-
part again.
If I'm a Hebrew or if I'm a foreigner, if I know this verse and it says, God says, if I run away, then I can be free. I'm using this verse and none of those other verses matter, right?
Sure. If you're a slave and you're just going to take this verse and run away and think
Nope.
you're good,
That it's about abolishment, and your whole point is there should be
Oh,
no
like
slaves
you said,
in the
that-
first place.
like I said, this verse is weird. The way it's written,
It don't
there's
matter.
a.
It's there.
It
Yeah,
doesn't.
I agree. I'm just saying in the ancient, like the Talmudic writings, which is from the Jewish people in the antiquities times, there's much discussion about this verse and what it means.
Yes, but your issue is you said God should not allow slavery at all. And based
Yes.
off of this verse, you are stating this is about abolishment. Therefore, God is saying
No,
there is a way out of slavery.
no, this is about like if you love your slave, you could set him free if you like him that much.
No,
Yeah,
you
but
just
that's
said
not what it says.
Oh,
and
sorry,
you,
my what?
you
That's
just
not
said
what it
that.
says.
Yeah, that's not what it
Yeah,
said.
well, that's what. Sorry, it doesn't say that, but that's what the Talmudic writers were. That's one of the. That's the thing that they came to,
But
But isn't
and that's not.
aren't you using the context of the Bible to say why God is immoral? Then you have to use the context in what
Oh,
is
I got
stated.
lots of things for that, but like
But
I
this
said,
is the one that
this.
you presented to
But like I
last.
said, with my situation, if I'm me and you live next to a door. I have a couple kids. I sell my kids to you. You paid me, I don't know, $500 for each kid. Now that night, they run back to me. So like, what happens in that situation?
then they free.
They're free.
Yep, that's what this verse says. That's what you just said.
I don't think that's how it works.
Maybe not for man because man is corrupt. That's my point. We're talking about God, not man. Man will be mad, but God is saying there's a way out. Because this
Like
right
I said,
here, Deuteronomy, you're talking about the laws of God, not the laws of man.
Let me
So
try to
we're
bring
talking
this
about
one up.
God. God says there's a way out. You're supposed to let them free. If they run away, let them go free. You're talking
And
about
they're running away for a reason.
you're talking about man. If man decides to say, you know what, I'm not listening to Deuteronomy. I don't care what God has to say, and he goes back and get them, he's going against God. God says there's a way out. So I don't care what man is saying. I'm talking about God because your issue is not with man. Obviously, your issue is with God.
And sorry, could you go on a little longer? I lost my tab here. But I don't think this is what you think it means, this verse.
I'm going off what you said. I'm saying,
Like I said, it's about emancipation, possibly, of foreign.
gave him a way out.
Like, no, let me be more clear. I'm pretty sure this is about emancipation of foreigners from other nations coming to Israel.
It don't say nothing about.
I know it doesn't say that, but I know in like the Talmudic writings, that's what I'm trying to find something in my thing. If it, I got too many.
say
What does
that.
the Bible say, Jeff? What does the Bible say?
Oh well, you didn't even like the whole David thing with him killing the kid and having his wives raped.
Oh, we
Like,
talking
so,
about Jeff. Don't pivot. What does the Bible say
No.
about this situation? What does it say? What does the
Well,
Bible say?
oh
they-
well, it says you could own permanent slaves for life if they're from foreign nations.
We already talked about
No,
that.
this one
Right here. What does it say,
Like,
Jeff?
says God
Jeff,
said,
you read it. You read it for yourself. What did it say?
Yes, it says a slave who has escaped to you from their owners shall not be given back to them. They shall reside with you in your midst, in any place they choose, in any one of your towns, wherever they please. You shall not oppress them.
So then they got a way. They got a way to not be permanent slaves, right?
And then it says, the prohibition. This is my commentary note on it. I don't know if this is going to add anything so much, but it does say the prohibition of the return of escaped slaves. The law rejects almost every universal stipulation within ancient Near Eastern law that escaped slaves must be returned.
Is that what the
But-
verse? Is that what the verse says?
No, that was a commentary.
Yeah, the verse clearly says must not. It's clear. It says must not.
Yeah, but like I said, when you look at all the slavery laws, this is not part of it. Like I said, if you look at verse 17 of Deuteronomy, it's about temple prostitutes and stuff. And then the next verse is about like charging interest. This law is like a miscellaneous law that's like thrown in later. It has nothing to do with the previous stuff.
Is it in God's book that you say you don't agree with?
Huh? I know, I agree with what it says. I'm disagreeing with what it means per se. And
No, you just said what you think it means. You said you
Yes,
think it means
it's
abolishment, emancipation.
possibly.
So then,
That's what the Talmudic writers and that were arguing about, and that's what their ideas came to. Because, like I said, they have all these rules about slaves. If this was a thing, every slave would be there would be no slaves. They'd all just run away to their neighbors and be free.
yeah.
Again,
So,
we have to remember that this is the economy that they reside in. A lot of slaves are working for wages. A lot of slaves are paying off their debt, and even the slaves that
No,
were
slaves
chattel
don't get paid.
And so, but the point I'm trying to make, Jeff, is
Go ahead, Malik. I'm
the
gonna bring
point
it.
that I'm trying to make, Jeff, is your issue, the things you're talking about. You're saying your issue is with God. So when you're saying, well, why don't the man just do this, and then they could just sell them, and then their kids can just run away, right? That's a man issue, not a God issue. God is saying this.
Yeah,
What
he's
you're
saying you
talking
could own slaves for life, and you can beat your slave as long as they don't die, and you could sell your daughter as a slave, and she could become a concubine.
okay.
Actually, I do have another.
This is the example I can give you.
We got another one here, but
Do you think the government or the police are immoral for creating a prison system?
no.
Why? Because they lose their free will and they are subjected to the prison system. So why are they not immoral?
I don't want to get into this conversation.
No, that's what we're talking about.
Falwyn covered a lot of this.
You're trying to go into the fact that God is wrong for regulating pagans. So
Well,
I'm asking you, is the prison system wrong?
No, the prison system is not wrong.
Why not?
Well, it is flawed, but
Exactly.
the
So
idea of it,
man is flawed.
yes.
Okay. So why is the prison system not wrong?
Why is it not wrong? Because it protects the society of people who have, to prevent criminals from continuing their, criminal activity.
Exactly. So if I'm an all-knowing and all-powerful God, right, and I told you that raping a woman is wrong, and I told you that
That's questionable.
I told you that child sacrifice is wrong. I told you idolatry is wrong. I told you bestiality is wrong. I told you fornication is wrong. I told you all these things, and you just decide to do it anyway. And then I create a prison system for you. I'm not wrong.
Correct.
So
That
he's
part,
not wrong.
like if they make laws and there's laws to be followed, not all laws are just, but they should be followed, unfortunately, if they're there.
So
And if
then
you
God-
break those laws, you may, depending on the law, you might be in jail justly or unjustly.
So then God is not immoral. Why do you have a problem with it then?
What do you mean God's not immoral? You mentioned two things about rape and child sacrifice. I could bring up things on that, but I think we should continue with. There is one more verse we left out of the slavery thing.
Before we go to that verse,
You're inconsistent. You just don't like God, but you're okay with when man does it. You're okay with man. You like man. If man does it, it's okay. But if God does it, it's not okay. That's what your real issue is. Yes.
Man doing what?
If man creates a prison system for people doing something they say not to do, you say that's not wrong. But if God creates a prison system for people he says do not do, you're like, that's wrong. Do you see the inconsistency?
Sorry, say that again.
Okay. If man creates a system for criminals, because the system says, if you do this and I told you not to do it, I'm going to create a prison system for you. You said that's not wrong. But if God says do not do this, and then he creates a prison system for the people he says they did wrong when he told them not to do these things, you said God is wrong.
Okay, here's the difference. When we make a criminal system, my preference, obviously, would be all the people in prison should be there justly. But unfortunately, because man's laws are unjust sometimes, people that are in jail are in there unjustly. So sometimes it's not necessarily great to have a prison system. If everybody worked the same way, it would be fine. I forgot. I got a little lost there.
Well, that's the beauty of God. He's not a man. He's all-knowing. Therefore, his prison system is pristine. Perfect.
Some of these things you're saying are kind of off topic, and I would like to get into them. I have no problem getting into them, but I feel like it's much longer. And we had a couple of other verses here that there's one more verse regarding slavery that we could put and this would be.
Okay, but before we move on to that, if someone is hired as a worker, would you say that they're compensated?
Yes.
Okay.
Or if it's the indentured servitude, the work is, paying off the debt. But yes, I agree pretty
Okay.
much what he said.
So, yeah, indentured slave. That's an indentured slave.
Yeah.
So, but you said the slaves don't earn wages.
Well, that's not earning wages. You're paying off the debt that you were either sold for or not, or you're paying for your work is your pay.
But it's pay. I mean, if you in the
Yeah,
hole,
you're
you're
paying off.
getting
You're
paid,
paying off
right?
the debt. You're paying off the debt. Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Go to your next verse, Malik.
No, he said he had a verse.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
it's just like the last verse regarding like God allowing slavery and stuff that like we pretty much covered everyone in the Old Testament. But this one's verse Deuteronomy 20, verse 10. And this is more about going to war with people, but it says, when you draw near to a town to fight against it, offer it terms of peace. If it accepts your terms of peace and surrenders to you, then all the people in it shall serve you as forced labor. If it does not submit to you peacefully, you will make war against it, and you shall besiege it. And then it says a bunch of stuff about killing all the people and taking the women. But it's not really a good choice if it's like, hey, you want to be my slaves, and if you don't, we're going to kill you all and take you anyways.
well, I think you have to go all the way down the timeline, right? We're approaching you. We're coming to take over your land, and then you have a choice. You can become a slave,
It
or
doesn't seem like a choice.
well, I mean, it definitely there's two options. But then when you come amongst us, God also says that if you want to, basically in paraphrasing, if you want to serve the God of Israel, we treat you as you're one of us. So you can remain
Oh,
pagan
but
and
are
then
these
remain a
people?
slave, or you can choose to worship the God of Israel, and therefore you can be amongst us and camaraderie and get married and function in our society. Is that not right?
Well, I don't know. Later on in that verse, it's just talking about annihilating all the people. So I'm not quite sure what you
But
just said.
none of that has to happen. None of the annihilation has to happen. You can surrender peacefully.
It doesn't sound very. Do you
This
think
is
that
war.
sounds good?
This is war.
It's like that doesn't seem like good options. It's like what? Be a slave or die? Like that
No,
doesn't feel good.
that's not the only options though.
That's what it says.
You can surrender peacefully,
Yeah,
and then
like
I
come
think
amongst us.
I
You
think the
can
problem.
convert,
Yeah.
and when you convert, you can be amongst us. You can enjoy our society and everything.
this doesn't sound like a free choice. If you
Yeah,
know
I
what I
think
mean.
I was about to say. I think the problem is I think you think these people are innocent. The people who are in this, who's a
Right.
part of this, I
Right.
think you think that they're just sitting on their couch and they're just sitting down and they're sitting there. They're like, why did they show up? So I think you think that they're innocent and they're just good people.
See,
You think they just popped up on them and decided to just come in there and kill them just because they just decided to. And these people over here are good people and we want to take them over. Do you think that?
well, I'm working in the theological sense of the Bible. If we're actually going to talk about historical sense, it's like there's so much to cover in that sense that I don't think I should even bring it up here because
So do you think they were good people? That's a simple question.
I think, unfortunately, I think the Israelite people were the same people.
I'm not talking about the Israelites. I'm talking about the people they invaded.
Well, like I said, this is theological and real. Like, there's no evidence that actually happened.
So
Jeff,
hypothetically,
Yes, I know. I'm working within the theological story of the book. Yes,
if they're not real, then the Israelites are not real, right? So if the hypothetical Israelites are these bad people, then who are the Canaanites and the Amalekites and all these people?
So this is the thing: Israelites
hypothetically
are
good
Canaanites.
Are they hypothetically good people?
Well, by our standards, no. But
So why do you think that they're innocent? You think they're just pulling up on them for no reason? If they're not
No,
good people. If they're not good
see-
people, they're probably deserving of what's happening to them also, right?
well, like in the historical works, not the theological works, the Israelites at the time are technically Canaanites. So they were doing the same thing the Canaanites did.
You're not answering. The people that they're overtaking, the Canaanites are not
Yeah.
good people, right?
Some of them are worse than others.
Okay.
But the only stories we really got from them being
Now,
not good people is
the,
from
va-
the Bible.
the vast amount,
So
God.
basically, the Canaanites could be criminals too. They're criminals, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Sure, we'll call them criminals from your point.
Okay.
I'll
But
agree with that.
when the prison and the rooster comes to crow and they say, "Hey, y'all criminals and we criminals, let's fight," is that's wrong?
Say that again.
If
I don't know. I think something's up with my microphone or headphones.
If the Canaanites are criminals and the judgment is coming to the Canaanites, why is that wrong? You just said that it's not wrong for a person to go into the prison system. So why is it wrong for the Canaanites to be criminals and then judgment is knocking at their door?
Well, if you're putting it that way, that yeah, if criminals are fighting criminals and whatnot, but the whole this whole story is about a guy getting a message from God that this land will be theirs. So these people went in and stole these people's lands. So,
I mean,
in my opinion, the Israelites are the invader conqueror people that are not they're like saying, "Hey, join us or become our slaves, and if you don't want that, we'll kill you."
The Israelites are just they're God's judgment.
Say that again.
The Israelites are God's judgment.
Well, let's see. There's so much to talk about. You know, have you ever heard about the Pantheon of El and the Canaanite fucking? Oh, sorry about language.
No,
Do you know about the Canaanite pantheon?
no, Joe.
Oh,
I don't know if I could get into this. This is all.
It sounds too skeptical for me.
It's not skeptical. It's ancient Near East history. Like,
Why do you believe that if it's ancient? You don't believe anything ancient.
what do you mean? I don't believe anything ancient?
Because if it's too old, you don't know if it's real.
What?
Right?
No.
You're a skeptic, so you have to be consistent. So why do you believe it then?
Why do I believe that we have tablets from?
Yes.
Because we have tablets from
And we
that
have
long?
manuscripts, so why don't you believe those manuscripts?
No, I do believe the manuscript. I believe manuscripts exist.
So then why don't
It's
you believe
the content. It's the content that's within them.
Oh, so it's not about if we have it or not. It's about if you want to accept it or not.
No. Well, yeah. Do you believe Zeus and stuff?
No, but the same scholars that we listen to for factual information say that Paul has completely legitimate manuscripts. 1 second, that's the dinner.
I agree. Those 7 letters from Paul are from Paul.
Yeah, and Paul clearly states that in 1 Corinthians, he's giving us something that was given to him, which is Jesus Christ died for our sins.
Okay. Are we done with the slavery talk so I could maybe close up my stuff here?
Oh, go ahead.
But also, to be fair, for my Bible knowledge here, I'm a little less. Everything past the Gospels, I'm not very familiar with as much. I know some stuff. I'm not astute. So when you bring up Paul's stuff, I don't really trust it in the first place.
So then why do you trust stuff that's older than
Because
Paul?
you're skeptical, Jeff.
No, I don't. I trust Paul existed. I trust Paul wrote those letters. I don't trust Paul on what he puts in those letters.
I know.
I believe Paul believed the things that he put in those letters.
Yes, what I'm saying is you are only skeptical if it has God and Jesus in it. That's it.
No.
Yes. Because if Paul said what he said and it didn't mention nothing divine, it didn't mention no supernatural, it didn't mention no miracles, you would say this is ancient history. I believe it.
No, I believe Paul's letters are true, like as in truly written, that he really believed the things that he was writing.
What in it are you rejecting?
Well, first, he never knew Jesus. He had a vision of Jesus. So everything he says is,
he met Jesus. The reason why you say he never met Jesus is because this was after Jesus already resurrected, so he was in his glorified body. So
yeah,
he
seen a vision.
He didn't see Jesus the normal way before Jesus died on that cross.
Yeah, he's seen a vision.
No.
The Bible
Seen a
doesn't
flash.
have a vision. He said,
What's it say? Like I said, to be fair, I'm a little not as astute on this. So.
Yeah, Paul clearly states he encountered Jesus, not He not I was hallucinating or had a vision of this. No,
Could I have a verse, please?
he clearly states he encountered Jesus. That's what he clearly states.
Is this in Acts?
No,
This is-
Acts was not Paul.
Yes, but
Yeah.
where is the recollection of that
Oh,
story?
you want the verse?
Yeah,
Okay, I'll pull it up for you.
I'm pulling it up.
like I said, anything past the Gospels, I can't point exactly to it.
Okay, I'm pull it up for you. First Corinthians.
Oh, is that where it's at? All right.
Well, it's in multiple places.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah.
It's in multiple places.
Because he tells this story many times.
Yeah, Paul has his own.
Oh, if you could bring up give me the story all the ways. Like, I know there's the one where people say he fell off a horse, but from what I remember, I don't think there's a horse in the story.
No, they're saying this. Yeah, you have a verse you want me to pull up? It's not like you had a verse you want me to pull up.
Me?
Who, me?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
I asked because I thought you were pulling up.
Oh, I thought you said you was pulling up.
So from what I remember, I thought it said Paul seen a vision after the flash of light.
Is it 1 Corinthians 15:8?
You want me to go to 1 Corinthians 15 there?
Yeah, I'm not 100%. I think that might.
No, that's one of them. Like I said, there's a bunch of them. I can pull all of them up at the same time because it's not just one account. I believe there's about 4 or 5 accounts that mentions.
And he repeats it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he repeats it because he's always being questioned about it.
Yeah, I don't see Corinthians 1:15. Well, I see it, but it doesn't really say, like, it just says it appeared to me. But I was looking more for the story of when, the flash of light, he fell to the ground. The people with him heard the voice but did not see anything.
Oh, you know it, Jeff?
Yeah, like I said, I do know things, but
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure. Except I'm more familiar with the Gospels in the Old Testament opposed to anything past. But that's the verse that I was referencing, and I'm pretty sure it just says a vision, right?
It's
Like this
Acts
one.
9:1-19.
Yeah, so like that, like I said, I'm more familiar with this verse probably, and
It says, "Then Saul, still breathing."
Is that 1:9? Acts 9?
You got it. You got it pulled up.
Almost. Yeah, I'm here now. Wait, what's verse? What verse is that?
Acts 9, verse 1-9.
It starts at Acts 9.
Oh, I thought it mentioned a vision in this, but it doesn't seem to mention a vision.
Mm-mm.
It just says a voice or something.
Yeah, he's stating that he states in multiple verses that the Lord appeared to him and he heard him audibly. So that's why I said the hallucination thing that the skeptical scholars try to use is not accurate, because it's actually, if you look into how hallucinations happen, you don't have a visual hallucination and a audible hallucination at the same exact time.
I don't know if that's true.
That is true. Go look into it.
Go look
look
at
Hey, I'll believe you, but I'm not. I'll go with it.
Yeah, so Paul would have to have a few things. He would have to have an audible hallucination, a vision hallucination, a Messiah complex, and what was the other two? There was two more.
And it says there's nothing in the diagnostic literature about hallucinations. It is short-lived and it goes away. So in the DSM, a conversion disorder, a conversion hallucination is not in the DSM-4 at the time when Gary Habermas gave this. The scholar Gary
Yes.
The scholar Gary Habermas gave these points as to why Paul was not hallucinating or having a conversion disorder. He says, for one, it's not in the DSM-4. You would also have to have an auditory hallucination at the same exact time, and you would have to have a visual hallucination at the same exact time, and a great psychosis, often called the Messiah complex, all happening at the same exact time.
Where do they get the horse from?
Yeah, that's what I said. People just make up like stories all the time.
Well, I've heard a couple of things. I heard, from the skeptical people, one of the hypothesis was that he might have been bit by a scorpion.
That's what I'm saying. They're just saying stuff.
Well, the symptoms do resemble some of the same things. But I don't, like I said, I'm not familiar with most of this stuff past
Well,
the
okay, I'll read it.
Gospels.
It says, then Saul.
Like I read, I understand it.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, but it's still like he didn't see anybody.
No, okay, I'll go back.
Light from heaven flashed around him, fell to the ground, and heard a voice.
Last of all, as though one born at the wrong time, he appeared to me also. So let me actually 15:8. It says, last of all, though. Sorry, let me go up. Then, let me start here.
I'm gonna get
As
I'm
a
gonna get
first
ready for my
importance,
kids. Bye, Jeff. Appreciate the
yeah.
conversation.
Good night. Good night.
it says, for I passed on to you as of first importance what I also received, that Christ died for our sins according to the scriptures, and that he was buried, and that he was raised, and on the third day according to the scriptures, and he also appeared to Cephas. This is Peter.
Yes.
Then to the 12. Then he appeared to more than 500 of the brothers and sisters at once, most of them whom are still alive, though some have fallen asleep. Then he appeared to James, then to all the apostles. Last of all, as though to one born at the wrong time, he appeared to me also. For I am the least of the apostles, unworthy to be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God.
Yeah, I know all that stuff.
Yeah, so he's clearly stating here that Jesus.
Yeah,
appeared.
but a lot of these are. This is just him claiming that he appeared to all the people, or to all those other people.
No, Paul's not the only one that says this.
Well, who else says this?
Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, everyone who was around Jesus.
That's not true.
That is true. What do you mean?
I don't think the gospel authors knew Jesus.
Now you're just saying what you think, not what the Gospels are actually saying, right?
No.
Yes, because the Gospels do say that Jesus appeared to them.
No, I'm saying the gospel writers didn't know Jesus.
How do you know?
Well, even in like Luke and John, they specifically say that like they're not the witness. I don't even think. Okay, first of all,
How do you know that they didn't know Jesus?
well, give me a second here. I think it's the last chapter of John. That is one. Like you know the academic consensus on the authorship of the Gospels, don't you?
From the skeptics, I don't care what the skeptics are saying. I'm saying, how do they know? All they're doing is voicing their opinion.
Question.
They can't prove it.
When that's another thing. You keep on calling them like skeptic scholars. Like,
That's what they are.
aren't they just scholars? Don't
No.
they, I feel like they have the evidence to
No, they're
like.
skeptic scholars, meaning they're on the opposite end. They're not Christian scholars. So therefore,
Skeptic would be somebody that doesn't believe it because of, like certain things. These guys like study it and know it and become skeptics.
They're skeptics because they're saying, I don't believe Jesus is God, but I'm still going to study.
Did you ask them why they don't believe it?
Yeah, they say exactly why they don't believe. They don't believe Jesus could perform miracles. They don't believe Jesus is God. They don't believe he's the Son of God. They don't believe he could have known the future. So therefore, the temple falling in 70 AD, they don't believe that, because if they believe that, then that means Jesus was right about it 40 years before it actually happened. So they don't believe that. They don't believe in miracles. They're exactly what you're saying, a naturalist, and they believe in evolution, and they believe in science. Therefore, this is why they decline the Gospels.
Well, once again, we'll go back to the authorship here, but at the last verse of John, what is this verse? What is it? 21, verse 24. It literally says, "This is the disciple who is testifying to these things, as has written them, and we know that his testimony is true." So there's somebody that is.
We.
That's the question. Who is the we? Because the
John
people that are the we are the people that are writing these.
No, it's not. The people that are we. John is an apostle, and he had 11 other brothers who were disciples of Jesus. He's saying we. Paul says the same thing in his verses. He said, if I give you something and I preach to you, we all are agreeing to something. They all use we because they're saying they're all one. When they're talking about Christ, when they're talking about the Gospels, they're all saying that they are one together. So they all say we. Paul, John is not the only one who says we. Paul says we as well, because he's talking about, if I say the Gospels to you, it has to line up with what the other brothers are saying, because we all agree that Jesus is Lord. They're all. That's why he says we.
But the Gospels are all like messed up.
They're not.
Should we continue with the other part from the other day?
I'm just saying they're not messed up. So
Like
So
we
they-
already did the Matthew chapter 1. Like, what did you think about the errors there?
yeah, I'm not saying that there's not textual variances, but it still doesn't negate the fact.
Fair enough. That one doesn't. Oh, see,
Yeah, textual variances. I have no problem with textual variances, but I also doesn't mean
yeah,
that
but there's contradictions in these things that can't possibly both be true.
there's not contradictions.
Okay. Give me a second here. Like, when was Jesus born?
I don't know.
Like, well, it has it in the Gospels. Like, it tells you when.
All I know is there's an estimated time when he was born, which is why even today you live in 2026. Why?
Because that is the date of the calendar that people, who was it, Julius Caesar, or the Julian calendar that we follow?
No, it's telling us it's 2026 years since the estimated time of Christ was born.
Sure, if you want to put it that, I think it means common era now, and the way
Yeah,
they date.
Because they don't want to accept BC or AD, so they changed it to common era. But common era is actually a newer term than BC was or AD was.
Fair enough, but I'm pretty sure the calendar is based off the Romans before Jesus, and it was just upgraded by who is it? Is it Gregorian, or is that the guy's name?
No, it was updated because Christ was born, and they're going off of him. So every single person, whether you're a believer or non-believer, every single person lives off of the estimated time that Jesus Christ was born.
Well, that's not necessarily true because the Chinese go by a different calendar, and so do the Hebrews.
No, they live in 2026 just like we do.
No, like in China, I don't know what year it is. It might be like 5,000 or something like that. I forget what their calendar goes to. They're on a different year. Chinese calendar, look it up. It's not 2026.
Not true. Look,
What's not true?
what year is it in China? It says the date in China is Friday, March 13, 2026 in China.
What? How about type in what date is it on the Chinese calendar?
I'm not talking about their festivals or their beliefs. I'm talking about if you were to go in China right now, they know it's 2026 as well.
Well, yeah, because we're using a worldwide counter thing, but they have their own culture that they go by this. Fair enough, they're not doing that.
Worldwide system. The worldwide system says it's 2026.
Oh, it's the accepted system, but like I said, other people use different date. Like
I'm
the
not arguing,
Chinese.
I'm not arguing that other people don't use other stuff, but I'm saying the whole world knows it's 2026.
Yes.
Yes, which is based off of Christ.
Well, like I said, the Julian calendar. Let's not argue about this. This is a silly one.
No, it's not, because you're living in 2026 based off of Christ, and you're saying he's not
Well,
real. The whole world lives off of lives off the back of a man you say isn't a person.
I
It's
didn't say
inconsistent.
that. Like, to be fair, I'm like 51% he existed and 49% he might not have existed, but I believe he's real.
I don't know any other person. If Jesus is not God, then the whole world is just making Jesus famous because everything is based off of him.
Fair enough. Well, they are making it fair. Not everything's based off it, but let's continue back to what you said. Things are wrong. But when was Jesus born? Because we have two different stories of when he was born, and they both can't be right.
Good night.
Good night. So let's see. Obviously, at Matthew, he's born during the reign of King Herod, right? Because they have to escape to Egypt to avoid King Herod. Hello? Can you hear me?
Sorry, what did you say?
Oh, I was just going back to the gospel parts and how you said there's no contradictions and stuff. And I was just bringing up how Jesus, in Matthew, Jesus is born when King Herod is alive, correct? Because they escaped to Egypt to avoid his infanticide.
Yeah, he's born. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, King Herod would be the king at that time, around the time he was born,
Yes, and
or at least a child.
Yeah, so we know about King Herod. King Herod died in 4 BC. Correct, or what? Or you don't know that?
You said King Herod died in 4 BC?
Yes,
I don't believe so.
it could be 2 BC. It could be 6 BC. I forget what it is. I'm saying, well, I think it's like 4 BC.
Yeah, because Jesus was a little bit older by the time they came back.
Yeah, it's like maybe 2, maybe 1. I don't know. He was older when they came back, obviously.
Yeah, 4 BC.
All right, so now give me a second here. Now I think it's Luke we want to go to now. So we know King Herod, he was born during King Herod, and King Herod died in 4 BC. So Jesus might have been born before that. So Jesus is probably born in 4 BC according to Matthew. So now if we go over to Luke, give me a second here. Sorry, scrolling down. This is, oh no, where is it? Okay, here we go. Luke chapter 2. So it says Jesus is born. It says the first registration and was taken while Quirinius was the governor of Syria. This is when Jesus was born in Luke. Correct?
Hold on, let me go to Luke real quick. Oh, what verse are you reading?
Sorry, I had a bunch of. It's a verse or chapter 2, and it's going to be like verse 2.
Verse 2?
Yes. Well, yeah. This is just talking about prior to that. This is all Jesus' lineage, and Mary's pregnant. But it gets to chapter 2. And they're talking about a child will be born, he'll be the Most High. That's at the end of chapter 1. But then it's like the child grew and became strong. And then in those days, so that's like in those days when the child was born. So now we're in verse 2, and it says, this was the first registration of Quirinius, or registration, and was taken while Quirinius was governor of Syria. So at this time, Jesus is born during the census or registration of Quirinius. I think this is why like Joseph and that also like go to some place so they can get registered for the census, right? He went to, was it Beth, or yeah, he went to Beth, where is it? Joseph also went to the town of Nazareth, to the city of David called Bethlehem, because he was descended from the house of David. So he went back to Bethlehem to be registered for this census. Are we on the same? So we're on the same page. So Herod died in 4 BC, and Jesus was born then, and now he is being born during the census of Quirinius. So the problem with this is the census of Quirinius was taken in like 6 AD, 10 years after the death of Herod. So it's like, when was Jesus born?
No. So these are all estimated days. So estimated years. We're going off of estimations. So they don't know for sure the actual dates of.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do. I'll explain if you'd like.
No, they don't. It's all estimation because the Jesus wasn't documented. So Jesus wasn't documented on his actual literal birth, because he was.
Oh, was he born with Herod?
He was supposed to be born as a humble as a humble in a humble stable. So no one really actually documents the actual
Yeah.
complete day he was born.
Fair enough, but we do know that he is born apparently during the reign of King Herod, right?
Uh-huh.
And then we, from the other verse, he's born during the census of Quirinius, right?
Yeah, but Quirinius is already there.
See, this is the problem. I don't know.
Quirinius
Like,
is already there. Quirinius is there even around 2 to 3 BC.
no,
Yes, he is.
no.
Yeah,
I don't know where my notes on are here, but from what I'm just going from memory here, so I'm going to be mistaken probably. But from my understanding is after King Herod died, he has like 3 sons, like I forget they're like Herod and Antipatus, or there's a few Herods after him that are not him. But the one son became governor of this region, but apparently he was really bad at his job, and he was fired, and he was replaced by Quirinius. Now Quirinius, because the other guy was so bad at his job, when Quirinius came in, he had to go take a census for all these. Like he was, he's the new governor in charge of stuff. He has to go recount everything. I don't have my notes here. I have like all kinds of sources, but nonetheless, like the Quirinius is at least 6 to 8 BC after when he's the governor of that region.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is the exact same thing I said about the names, right? They don't have the exact estimated day that he was born because it was never documented.
Yes,
So
but
Luke was not a direct disciple.
I agree. He wasn't even
So
a witness.
Luke was going to the people who actually eyewitnessed Jesus.
And like, apparently you don't accept the academic consensus on the writings, but from my understanding, Luke is written around like 80 or 85, so technically that's 80 years after Jesus. Like,
And that's not true.
why is that not? Well, let's not go into that one yet.
It's not,
But
not true. You do realize you want to know something very interesting, and you should look into this. What's very, very interesting is they all of them want to date the Gospels after the destruction of the temple. Did you notice that?
Well, this is another thing, because there's a lot of writings outside the Bible within that time. Everybody predicted the temple was going to be destroyed.
But they agreed that the temple was destroyed in 70 AD.
Yes.
So why did they push all the Gospels after 70 AD?
Because there's the detailed things of the destruction.
No, I'm not talking about the destruction. I'm talking about the Gospels. Why do they push? No, because Acts doesn't mention if it's after. Why don't they mention in Acts the destruction? If Acts in Luke is written after the destruction, why don't they mention it? They're ethnic Jews, so the destruction of the temple would be important to them. So why wouldn't they document it?
To be fair, like I said, when you talk about Acts and stuff, I'm very limited on my knowledge of that. But from my understanding, it's like you're saying that Luke actually wrote Luke, right? And Acts, the actual Luke. That's your belief. So Luke is Paul's friend, right? He's with him all the time.
Yeah, he's Paul is his teacher. Yeah, he's a companion of Paul.
And then we have Paul's authentic letters, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How come Paul really doesn't quote anything that Luke mentions in the Gospels?
He doesn't quote?
Like, he doesn't take any quotations from Luke's Gospel.
Because why would I take quotations from someone who's learning under me? If you're a scholar, why would I quote my student? I'm the scholar.
Well, you're saying Luke is quoting like Jesus, like he was there and like knew him and stuff, right?
No, I said Luke he was going around asking eyewitnesses who knew Jesus.
Yeah, so if Luke's gathering this information word of mouth from other people about Jesus' words, why wouldn't Paul use those?
I just told you. If you're the teacher, why would you quote the student?
Because
Luke
apparently
Luke is a student under Paul.
Fair enough, but it seems strange that Paul wouldn't mention anything that's in the Gospels. like quote from the Gospels.
He does mention things that are in the gospel.
Well, yeah, I'll agree. He does mention things, but I'm saying quote from it. Like, there's all kinds of
Because
quotes. And
he's not there to say he's not there to create the gospels and then put it in his writings. He's there to say, I agree with the gospels, and I'm going to give you Paul's perspectives on why I agree with the gospels and what happened to me. He's giving you a real life scenario, so it doesn't make sense for him to just basically repeat the same thing of the gospels. That wouldn't be authentic, actually.
well, what do you mean? The Gospels repeat each other all the time.
No, I'm talking about Paul is giving his own. They all give their own perspectives.
Well, I agree, but like I said, there's a lot of contradictions where they both can't be true, such as the birth thing here. It's like, which one's true? Are
Yeah,
they
this
both
is
true?
Like I said, I don't have a problem with saying there's textual variances. Me personally, I don't have a problem. This is ancient times, so it wasn't like we had like how we have everything. We know when someone is born because we have birth certificates, social security cards.
Yes,
We have social media. We have so many different
I
ways.
feel like you're missing the argument a little bit here. Like, I'm not particularly care exactly when Jesus was born, but the texts say two different times, like significant periods of time.
So if you don't care when he was actually born, why are you
Well,
saying?
Well, this has to do with the reliability of the Gospels, right? Because
It doesn't. Because
if he's not born in Herod's time, then the whole escape to Egypt doesn't make sense. Because if he's born during Quirinius' time, Herod's dead. Herod can't do the infanticide, so why would they have to escape to Egypt?
So that way that Jesus wouldn't be killed.
Yeah, but Herod's already dead, according to Luke.
And according to Matthew, he's not.
Well, you don't see a problem?
No.
I don't know what to say that. It's a strange position to take. So they escaped to Egypt to avoid the dead Herod. And then they waited for the dead Herod to die so they could go back. Like, that doesn't make sense.
What I'm saying is, whether Jesus was born in 4 BC or 60 AD,
sure,
I don't care. You know why I don't care?
Why?
Because Jesus rose from the dead. So I don't care.
Well, how do we know that? Like I said, that's just a story. It could be wrong, just like all these other ones.
No, they have evidence.
There's no evidence of Jesus rising.
Yes, there is.
Where is the tomb?
No, not just the empty tomb. There's evidence that Jesus rose from. Do you know who Lionel Lukahu is?
No.
Lionel Lukahu he's in the Guinness World Record books, actually. He is he's considered the most successful lawyer to ever exist. He beat over 240 murder cases in a row. He's considered one of the greatest lawyers, if not the greatest lawyer to ever live. And he got challenged before his death. One of his friends said, "Hey, I know you don't believe in Jesus," because he was a skeptic. He said, "I know you don't believe in Jesus, but have you ever thought about using your skills as someone who gathers evidence to prove things and looked into Jesus and see if he really was a real person, if he really existed, and if he really rose from the dead?" And Lionel said, I'll do that. And he didn't just do this, overnight. It took him almost a decade to gather the information. It took him 9 years to gather this information. Look him up. Lionel Lukahu. It took him 9 years to gather up all the information that he needed to figure this out. And I'm going to show you.
I just want to say now, you can show me. I'm totally cool with you showing me whatever. I just want to say this is an appeal to authority fallacy.
No, it's not. What I'm stating is you like to use scholars. You say, well, the scholars' consensus is this. They said it was in 80 AD. So you're doing the exact same thing. But when I do it,
no, mine's not another thing. Mine's based on the evidence of the book, what it says.
So is his. Lionel Lukahu is a successful lawyer. He's in the Guinness World Record books.
This is why
he's a lawyer. So his job is to get evidence. Do you think you can get better evidence than a lawyer?
Well, no, but let me just ask you something here. Do you know what an appeal to authority fallacy is?
Yes, I know what it is, and I'm saying you do the same exact thing, but because I'm
No,
using it against you, you're saying
no.
no.
There's a difference between an appeal to authority and appeal to authority fallacy. What you're presenting is you're telling me a lawyer is telling me all this Bible stuff to true. I'm going to go to the experts in the Bible to tell me
No,
what's in the Bible.
he didn't say nothing about the Bible.
Oh, sorry. Then continue. My bad.
Yeah, he didn't say nothing about the Bible.
I thought you were saying you gave him the evidence from the Bible to make. But go
No,
on. Continue.
nope, that's not what I'm saying.
Yes. Sorry. My bad.
Let me show you what he said.
Sorry. I don't have you on my screen all the time. I got a bunch of tabs open. So
No,
give me a second. I got you now.
Okay, let me show you here. This is his quote. He says, I say unequivocally that the evidence for the resurrection of Jesus Christ is so overwhelming that it compels acceptance by proof, which leaves absolutely no room for doubt. He didn't say
Okay.
nothing about the Bible.
Fair enough. All
What he
right.
did was took his knowledge from being a lawyer and all he did was gather up information to figure out about the resurrection. He didn't care about the Bible, what the Bible said, none of that. He said that the evidence for the resurrection of Christ is so overwhelming that he doesn't think it leaves room for doubt.
So yeah, what's the evidence?
Go look. That's what I said. Go look into the evidence that he
Well,
provided.
he made the claim. He should provide the evidence.
He did. This is just a quote. He did provide the evidence. You can actually look. You can actually go to his thing. They have it to where you can pull up his.
How come Bible scholars don't agree with him?
They do.
Oh no, theologians do. Hey, sorry, this is totally off topic.
They're skeptics. They don't. If you don't, that's why I said earlier. If you don't believe in God, it doesn't matter what evidence we give you. You don't care. That's
No,
the
I want
truth.
evidence. I'm
No,
for
you want-
truth.
the only
That's
evidence
my
you would-
thing. I want
The only
truth.
evidence you would accept. The only evidence you would accept is if God came down here right now and said, "Hey, I'm God." Then you'd be like, "Okay."
Well, okay, this is just totally off topic. Nothing important here. But I'm just actually curious about this StreamYard thing for a second. Can you actually bring up two people at the same time?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I see Fowlins out there. Would you want to bring him back in here? I don't know if he's still here, but I'm happy to hang out and add to conversations. And if he wants to add stuff, that'd be
Yeah,
great too.
he's here.
If you want to have him up here, that's great. Also, I see he's mentioning some stuff in here. I don't know. I agreed with pretty much everything he said, and he probably has more knowledge on some of these things than I do. I don't know. Is he here?
Yeah, but I'm not sure if I'm on or not.
Oh yeah, I hear you. Nice to meet you.
Oh, hey, nice to meet you too, man. Thanks for inviting me up, and thank you for having me up again. I'm not sure what you wanted to talk about. I came in late. I missed all the good debate around slavery stuff, so I heard some of that going on. Yeah, no, it's whatever topic is. I know it's getting late too, so I don't know how much time everyone has, but what do people want to talk about?
Well, you can continue what we were just saying. I've kind of lost track there when I seen the chat. So.
Oh,
Yeah. What I was pointing out to him was, there is evidence for Jesus' resurrection, and he says, "Well, why doesn't the skeptical scholars or the non-Christian scholars accept it?" And I said, because it's the simple point is either you believe in God or you don't believe in God. So if I don't believe in God, I don't care if you give me the evidence for it. I'm still going to say no.
I try to stay away from that, and just the reason is that you can flip it back around, right? Like, imagine if someone said, if a Christian scholar is doing good work on a part of the Bible, if someone said, listen, they're a Christian, they just want me to believe, I'm not going to believe a word they said about the Bible, right? I wouldn't do that. I'd be like, I have to have good faith that scholarship will take care of itself, and that there's standards in scholarship And I can't just dismiss every Christian who writes about the New Testament or the Old Testament just because they're Christian. What I tend to do is go, listen, like and this comes from like the commentaries I sent you on Isaiah. Like there are liberal commentaries, right? There are academic commentaries. There are conservative commentaries. The NVE I think it was NEV. Like in the commentary, it says, hey, even if this prophecy had a fulfillment in its time, don't worry. Jesus is still like part of the prophecy. That's a very conservative thing. It's telling people, even if you accept a localized prophecy that was fulfilled in Isaiah, Jesus is still fulfilling it secondarily. Like that's conservative, right? Because that's telling you, don't worry, there has to be a Jesus connection. Other ones like don't even mention Isaiah very much. So I'm like, I just have to be like, let the scholars speak for themselves and let them duke it out, and try not to prejudice myself unless it's really obvious someone is like, hey, as an act of like faith or as an act of, my belief, I will never say Jesus is God, or I will always say Jesus is God. And then I have to weigh that a little bit in my head, but I try to let scholars speak for themselves.
So if a scholar says Jesus is God, do you accept it?
I don't think scholars would. That seems a weird thing to say.
Well, there's scholar believers, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, are you saying as like they're saying like as an act of faith, or are they saying I've published something that proves like Jesus is God?
Either or, they're just a scholar. They're
Well,
scholars.
I wouldn't accept a statement of faith from them just because they're scholars. Just like if a scientist said
That's
that
fine.
drinking poison is good for you, I wouldn't accept it. That's the fallacy, right? The appeal to authority fallacy.
That's my
But
point.
if they have an argument,
If they said I have evidence that Jesus is God,
Yes, I want to see it.
yeah, I want to see the evidence. I want to
That's
see
what-
how they lay it
that's
out.
that's what I just said. Go look
Yeah.
up Lionel Luckahu. Lionel Luckahu is in the Guinness World Record books for being the most successful lawyer. So his job is to provide evidence. He took 9 years to study the resurrection of Jesus. And after he studied this, you can go look at all the details he gave. But
Can you spell his name, please?
yes, Lionel Luckahu. It's going to be Lionel Luckahu. Luckhoo. His name is Sir Lionel Luckahu.
That's an awesome last name.
Yep, that's his name. It took him 9 years, almost a decade, to find this evidence for the resurrection.
Was he a
And
scholar?
his job is to get evidence.
He's apparently a lawyer.
Yes, he is.
Okay.
He's in the
Yeah.
world record books. He's not just a regular. He's not. I'm saying he's not like just somebody. I'm just saying.
What's he in the world record book for, by the way?
I told you, he's in the world
Oh.
record book for the most successful wins back to back to back. He won over
alright.
240 murder cases in a row.
You know what he did? He represented Reverend Jim Jones of the People Church Temple.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that's. I wonder if he really wants to let people know that he represented Jim Jones. That doesn't seem to be
Yeah, that's not
a
good
big
at all.
thing in his. And he's
Like I
also
said-
doing murder acquittals. That's interesting.
That's what I said. He's in the world record books for over 240 murder cases wins in a row.
No, but I don't care. Like that's fine. Like, but his and what I'm saying is, I'm not dismissing. I'm saying like, if he published something, great. Let's look at the peer review. But just because he's a good lawyer doesn't mean he knows jack squat about biblical studies.
Agree.
If he's published it,
this is not that's not biblical. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. He's not appealing to the Bible. He's gathering evidence of the resurrection. His job as a lawyer is to get evidence.
Like,
That's what lawyers do.
So he's not quoting the Bible.
This has nothing to do with the Bible. So it has nothing to do with biblical, scholarly, anything.
wait.
Yeah.
So you're saying he doesn't refer? Oh, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
He's not talking. Look, let me show you the quote. His quote has nothing to do about the Bible. He says, I say unequivocally that the evidence for the resurrection, not biblical information, none of that, the evidence for the resurrection of Jesus Christ is so overwhelming that it compels acceptance by proof, which leaves absolutely no room for doubt.
Right, hold on. But he says the evidence, right? So what was the evidence? Did he write
Yeah,
a book?
that's what it
Did he
is.
write a
What's-
paper?
That's why I said you can go look up his evidence.
What's the name of the book he wrote? Like, I just need you to tell me. Like, you have this
it's not
quote.
It's not a book. He's a lawyer. You actually can get his actual timeline of his evidence. You can go
Right, where can I get that?
Could I type in his name on would you guys accept the AI thing of it?
I don't like AI. But
I
it might be
agree.
okay.
Like that's what I asked. I just,
Yeah, I'll look into it, but like if he says evidence, it means he's probably referencing the Bible in some way, just because we're talking about the resurrection, right? So is he talking about the resurrection of Jesus?
He's talking specifically about the resurrection of Jesus.
Right. So obviously he's going to reference the resurrection in some way, right? Like he's talking about it. He's saying there's evidence for that specific resurrection, right? So he's going to reference the Bible in some way. Otherwise, we wouldn't know what he was talking about. I just need to know like what his evidence is. But I'll look into it.
Go look into his evidence.
Yeah, I can't argue the man when I haven't read what he's written.
Yeah, that's what I said. Go look into his evidence.
Yeah.
like from my understanding, the only evidence of Jesus actually existing are from outside of the Bible, are what is Suetonius, Josephus.
Yeah, and a lot of it was like there were people who believed in Jesus was the Christ, so it seemed to indicate that like they were talking about like followers of his, which makes sense.
They didn't believe that Jesus was the Christ. So Christianity started not because they believed in Jesus Christ. Christianity started because they say that they saw something.
Right. No, I don't want to get into that debate. I'm just saying, like, when these historians were writing, we don't know who they were writing about. They just said that or some of them were saying, like, we know that there are Christians who believe this Jesus was the Christ. So they could have been, like, 20 years later, 30 years later. So I'm just saying, like, the historians were just saying that there was a cult of Jesus, you know.
They weren't saying anything about magical stuff.
But this is my issue. I honestly, personally, I honestly don't care. Let's say Jesus lived in or died in 33 AD, right? Let's say this, right? Let's say this is when he died. Let's say he died in 33 AD. And then all these people wrote it in 72 AD. I don't care. You know why? Because are you guys old enough to remember 9/11?
Yeah.
Okay. So would you ever forget 9/11?
Oh, yeah. No, important things you remember, sure.
Exactly. So if a man really did rise from the dead, they would have remembered that till the day that they died. So I don't care if they wrote it 20 years later, 30 years later, 40 years later, 60 years later, if they are telling the truth. I'm not saying this makes it true. What I'm saying is if they are telling the truth and this really did happen, it doesn't matter when they wrote it because they wouldn't forget that. No one would have.
Oh, I know that. I mean, that's why I accept other resurrection stories too, of people who saw someone raised from the dead. So Roman people, Greek people, since people saw it happen, Jesus wasn't very special. There were many people resurrecting from the dead. So we have to go, Jesus was not unique in that way because other people claim to have seen people they knew resurrected from the dead.
If Jesus wasn't special, then why do you know his name and not all the other ones?
I like no, you actually I've learned the others, but you know the answer to that. Like, come on, you know the answer. You know that Christianity spread thanks to Constantine and a culmination of events. But I'm just saying, like,
so
this is the thing. Like, when
there has to be some velocity to this other than the other ones, right? There's some velocity.
In the same way that, like, you know Muhammad, right? Like, we know Muhammad in Islam,
do you know Muhammad is under like his family tree?
You know, my point is that I know of him, right? But I don't think that just because we know about him that he was actually divine or spoke to God.
No, they never claims for him to be divine.
Sure. I'm just saying, like, I know a name of a prophet, like
I
Moses. I don't think. Oh, go ahead.
Did he rise to heaven on a winged horse or something?
That's right. Did he crack the moon? That was a good one from Crack the Moon. No, the point is, it's just like, listen, there are famous people in history who changed the course of history. I don't think anyone would deny that the religion of Christianity hasn't changed the course of history. That's not an argument against or for Christianity. It's just a fact.
Yes,
I agree.
It is because name me anything else, even the ones that you say changed history, that has the velocity that Christ does. Because all the ones you're naming, most of them are newer than even Christ's story.
Well, again, I guess that depends if you believe Islam is true or not, since Islam would say that Jesus was a prophet ahead of Muhammad. And so if he was a prophet, he was there to serve Muhammad.
Islam came 600 years after Jesus.
Well, yeah, but the New Testament came thousands of years after the Old Testament, and they did the exact same thing.
They're the same. It's still yes.
No. The Old Testament and the New Testament do not.
The Old Testament is still the same God in the New Testament.
No, I would disagree. I would say that Paul has a very different idea of the
Who?
God of the Old Testament. I think the writers of the New Testament have a much more Hellenistic Greek view of godhood than the Old Testament writers do.
No, they're the same. It's the same God,
Agree to disagree on
and
that
it's the
one.
same. And it's the same people. It's still the ethnic Jews. The Old Testament and the New Testament are still the ethnic Jews.
Sure, influenced by Hellenistic thought. Because remember, we're talking about the New Testament. This is when like Philo of Alexandria and Plato, and they're getting Hellenistic ideas influencing into Jewish thought. Because remember, no culture is static, right? Like the same way that we develop thoughts about new philosophies, they were doing it too. They were riffing off of each other. And that's why we see, like, when you look at John, it's so different in some ways from the other gospels because he's been much more influenced by like logos theology of Philo of Alexandria. Okay, so we have the writings of Philo of Alexandria. This is the cool thing, right? And he dies according to scholars, and I know you have a big doubt of scholarship, but Philo is a Hellenistic Jew in Alexandria writing about logos theology, and from a Jewish Hellenistic viewpoint, trying to figure out how do we reconcile the God of the Old Testament with these ideas of Hellenistic ideas. So like Hellenistic ideas were like prime mover, like God in the Hellenistic view, the Stoic view would, and again, I'm barely educated on this, so take it with a grain of salt, like would never sully his hands with the world. That's not what a God would do, right? A God is perfect. A God can't interact with an imperfect thing. So they were like, well, the Logos does. The Word of God is God's action in the universe, because that explains how God can remain perfect and unsullied by his creation, and yet his word can go out, part of God can go out and interact with this imperfect world. And that kicked off like a whole bunch of like thought, and I think you see it in John where he talks about the word of God quite a bit, this logos, like Jesus was the logos. Jesus had the name of God in him. And all I'm saying is like, you don't have to agree with any of this, right? But it's really fascinating when you start seeing how writers are influenced by the culture around them. Instead of saying, this was only so that I could understand this thousands of years later, we let them breathe as real people being influenced by other cultures.
What I'm asking is, how do you know John took from them?
Oh, so because, and I'll find the academia on this, but we can see John's language using similar language to Philo of Alexandria. So in other words, much like we know Matthew, Mark, and Luke shared parts of Mark because they're word for word the same in all three of the synoptic gospels, we know they're copying it. We know it's not just an accident when entire paragraphs are the exact same words, right? We know they're copying from somebody, whether it was Q or whether it was from Mark, or if you want to argue that one of them was earlier, they're sharing a document. They're copying a similar document. In the same way, if we see Philo of Alexandria, who was writing before Jesus was born, about the same things and ideas that we then see later in John, and we know John came after Philo, it's very reasonable to say, hey, there's this ideas out there, and he was using them to describe Jesus.
When was Philo written?
Sure. I think he was born in 35 AD. Let me look this up.
No, when was his writing?
So I'm pulling up the Wikipedia real quick. So he was born in 20 BCE and he died in 50 CE. So he was alive just before Jesus was born, about 20 years. He dies after Jesus died. So he's perfectly placed to be someone who the gospel writers would be familiar with, right? And
I want to know when was his writings.
Let me pull this up. Life, family, diplomacy, education.
Philo
of Alexandria. Basis his doctrine on the Hebrew Bible. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so every good experiment free theology. I'm just looking for his actual writings. But again, if you go to Wikipedia, you can see that he talks about the logos and etc. works. And so most of Philo's surviving works deal with the Torah. There's questionnaires, allegorical commentary, and the exposition of the law. I haven't looked into this too much to see when his writings were. So I would have to look at what scholars say, like what point in his life did he write these?
Well, he definitely wrote them before John wrote his.
Yeah, exactly. He was just one guy riffing.
The point that I'm making is this: Philo, his writings were not before the disciples were already with Jesus.
What do you mean?
So what I'm saying is, Jesus died. What date do you accept for Jesus'
Oh,
death?
33 CE
Okay.
is fine with me.
So that means he was already with his disciples 3 years before that, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, we're talking about the gospel writers. We're talking about the writers who wrote 70, 80, 90.
I'm talking about. I'm not talking about when they published it. I'm talking about they already are familiar with the teaching of Jesus Christ. That's why they're writing it, right?
You're talking about the gospel writers.
Yes.
I mean, if you believe they were actually who they say they were.
No. I'm saying even if it's not Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, if they wrote it after the fact, they're writing it based off of Jesus already existed, right?
Yes, but they're adding the Philo stuff with it.
Therefore, Jesus is already there before Philo even has his writings.
Well, maybe if he wrote something in his 20s, it would be around when Jesus was born. But I haven't looked into when he wrote things because he lived. Remember, he was born in, was it 50? Did we say 50 BCE?
I think he said 20 BCE.
So I don't know if he was writing in his 20s or not.
No, he wouldn't have been able to write in 20 BCE. He was born.
No, he's 20 BCE. He was born 20 years before Jesus was born. So when Jesus was born, he would have been 20 years old. And back then, 20 years old was older than it is these days.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so my point is just that, like, listen, people who are writing after Jesus, especially John, seems to have been influenced by this kind of thought. I'm not saying that disproves John or disproves Jesus, but for me, it's a really good insight as to why John was separated from the synoptics, why his message is so similar to Philo of Alexandria's and Greek thought. It gives us an insight into what the writer was trying to say. I'm not saying it's wrong, right? But I'm saying it's really good to be aware of the influences of who was acting on the gospel writers, like writing in Greek, using Greek stories, using Greek memes, you know?
But
like
everything you're stating is still centered around Christ. no matter where you go, it's still centered around Christ. How? Because
we're talking about the book, the Bible. We're talking about the Bible and like what the influences were. And to me, that's the fascinating part. I don't think it was true, but I really like understanding why these authors use this language. Why is John not included with the other three gospels? Why does he use certain language and other gospel writers don't? And when I want to find out who he was influenced by, because that's the fun part for me.
The fun part is the Old Testament and finding out all the ancient Near East stuff that influenced it. That's the great stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like, do you know about the laws of Hammurabi?
Yeah, I do. Yes.
Yeah. So this is really cool. They were written, scholars put it, 1700 BCE. They are where a lot of the laws in Exodus came from. So originally scholars were like, hey, 1450, 1350 for Exodus. But now modern scholars are like, this may have been written at the end of like 600 BCE because it was actually written in exile because it's a more romanticized version. But if you look at the laws of Hammurabi, and I'll post a copy in here, when it talks about, like, looking at slavery, if a free person puts out the eye of another free person, that person's eye shall be put out. This was coming, depending on when you put it, 400, like 800 years before Exodus was written, right? So you can see where they're getting these things. If you strike your father, his hand shall be cut off. It talks about slavery. It talks about rape. It talks about free merchants. It's much more comprehensive than Exodus, but you start going, okay, all these cultures were sharing a certain amount of common law that they reinterpreted for their own cultures. And this is an indication of like where they got some of these laws from. That's awesome to learn about to me. I'm like, that's great.
I'm with you, man. That's
and it's no
feel.
longer, and the whole point of this, and I'll leave because I know it's getting late, but like for me, it's like, once I accept that these authors were real people being influenced and having discussions with their counterparts in other religions or other societies, it's much more real than just going, it was written by this guy at this time for God, end of discussion. So
no, it wasn't written for God. The Bible was not written for God.
Oh, I meant on behalf of God. I should have said on behalf of God. That's what I meant. My apologies.
Yeah, the Bible was written for man.
Yeah. So yeah.
But all that being said, what does that have to do with Jesus being God and God existing?
Oh, that's
Oh, yeah,
a big jump. Yeah, I'll step out of it here. I got to get going. But hey, thanks for having me on. If you ever want to talk about those commentaries, real quick, nothing in there was meant to say that the Bible's not true. For anyone watching, I had a lot of fun. Sorry, what's your name again? Is it Malik?
Oh yeah, you can call me Carson.
Carson challenged me on Isaiah 7, 8, and 9, talking about.
Oh yeah, I want to. You almost had that bottled up. You're like 90% there.
I know, sorry, Emmanuel, right? And so he challenged me to be like, hey, if it couldn't have been about God, why does it say these things? What could it be about? So I took up his challenge, and he's rightly so calling me out on this. So I went to a bunch of commentaries, ICC, EVS, and a few others. And I was like, this is what they're saying. And this is what even the conservative ones are saying. This is what the liberal ones are saying. And there's a great commentary. It's like ICC. It's like the International something or other. Its Isaiah commentary is like hundreds of pages. And my point to him was to show that, hey, even among scholars and conservatives, there is a view of these prophecies that exist and make sense solely within the lifetime of King Ahaz. Nothing to do with Jesus. There's an argument to be made. Even biblical conservative scholars will say that, although they will say there's a secondary fulfillment in Jesus. So I think this is why I have these discussions, honestly, Carson, is because I like looking at the scholarship and then seeing how like you react to it and how I can learn more about the scholarship and what it says. So that's my thing. But I'll step off and thank you for your time and look forward to joining again.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, take it easy. It was nice meeting you.
Let me see
Oh,
here.
I'm still here, but if you want to log off or whatnot, we could do it another time, or we can continue, whatever you want.
Yeah, we've been on it. I gotta eat dinner. I've been on
Oh,
it
no problem.
for 3 hours. So I appreciate you for coming though.
Oh, no problem. If you want me back, I'll come back another time.
Okay.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
take it easy.
we probably stream again either tomorrow or Sunday.
Well, if you don't have anybody around, I'll come up. But-
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, take it easy.
Yes, sir.